script underway, if that's okay with you. Good evening, Hopkinton. This is Amanda Fargiano. I'm chair of the school committee, and you are watching our March 11th, 2021 school committee meeting. Welcome. Let's see. I need to read a script because we are meeting remotely tonight, so off I'll go. As a preliminary matter, this is Amanda Fargiano, chair of the school committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Meg Tyler.
Yes.
Nancy Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Joe Markey.
Yes.
And Leah Bentley Rafferty is coming from executive session. I'll call on her after. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Carol Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Susan Rothermick. I know Susan is coming as well. She was in executive session. I believe Ms. Parson is not with us tonight. I believe she has her own school committee. We are expecting some speakers, I think, later in the evening who are not here yet, but I will list them just so you know to anticipate them. We have middle school principal Alan Keller, and we have a middle school student, Anna Naroyan. We have, I believe, high school principal, Mr. Evan Bishop. And I think that's it for expected speakers. Am I right, Dr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, and Lee is now with us. Okay, so good evening. This open meeting of the Hopkinton School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we are complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as the public body makes provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Tonight, our public comment was posted as submissions via email by noon today that we compiled as written into a Google Doc and shared with the meeting materials, I believe. Posted with the agenda now, and they will be on our website. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body and are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Let's see. And I think that's it. And I will make note that we have activated the closed captioning on our meeting tonight. We are hoping that that will help more members of the community be able to access our meeting content. I will say that sometimes the captioning does not accurately capture the words. So we were looking at a transcript from our public forum, and there were some interesting typos. So I think it does help, and I hope people can use it, but please forgive any misspellings. Okay, with that said, I'd like to turn to the first item on the agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have a very full agenda tonight. Do we have any recognitions? Dr. Kavanaugh.
I think I'm okay.
It's March. We made it a year so far. We're all here. I recognize that. Good job.
I think I want to recognize somebody.
Yes, please.
I think the entire school committee would want to recognize you, Amanda. The amount of work, as Nancy earlier said, the amount of work that you have done in the past week and a half has been incredible. I don't know that I would have been able to keep up with everything that you have done, and you know, all the facts, all the stuff you put together for the public forum, all the work you did on the agenda for Sunday, all the work you're doing now. It's truly an amazing job you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's good work, and we're all working so hard. So I know it's a lot of sleepless nights for us. I know we've all been taking our responsibility as school committee members very, very seriously and trying to do a good job by the residents and the students in our district. So, you know, good. We have an excellent team. Thank you for that, Leah. That was very nice. All right. Public comment, as I mentioned, we did post the public comment. Has anyone on the school committee confirmed that it is up?
It is up. It is on the same area where today's agenda is posted. If you go under the About section, the school committee, the About, it comes up with the agenda and the minutes, and it's in the middle column over from where the actual agenda is on today's date.
Okay. Nancy, do you happen to have it up?
I could pull it up in about 2 seconds. Do you want me to send it to you?
No, I can pull it up too. I just wanted
Okay.
to, I apologize, I didn't pull this up before. I just want to make sure that I capture the count of public comments that we received. If you have it handy, you can do that. I just have to search.
I do. I believe it was 9.
I wanted to, here we go.
Oh, yes. Do you have it?
Yep, I have it.
Okay.
So we received 9 emails marked for public comment specifically. We received a whole lot of email in general, a lot of email, and I'm very thankful because we were able to really hear a lot of perspectives and experiences in the community on reopening. So we do read all of that mail, as you probably know, but all 5 of us read all the messages, even though you really only hear back from me. Sorry about that. So we did get 9 emails marked as public comment. We had 2 that were in favor of a full reopening, one of which was a group letter that represented over 400 families, most of whom I think signed the letter. It's several pages in the public comment document in favor of a full reopening. And we also received 7 comments against a full reopening, one of which was another joint letter representing about 37 families who were opposed to reopening in some form. So I do encourage all the community members to read that the comments that came in. There was a lot of thought put into those comments, and we appreciate that. Okay, back to the agenda. Okay. That brings us to Superintendent's Report. Dr. Kavanaugh.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, so this is the Superintendent's Report for Thursday, March 11th, 2021. As is typical, I'm just going to offer you a very quick student enrollment update. I have posted 2 of them on there. The one on your left is from February 25th, 2021. The one on the right is from yesterday, March 10th. There's just a very small 4 student increase. So we were at 4,011 students on February 25th and 4,015 today. What is of most interest, I think, on this slide is that we currently have 138 kindergarten students enrolled. And one of the things that we've been watching is just the number of those children who would actually be first grade aged. And I believe we're at about 10 students who would be first grade aged in that 138. And again, as I've said, every time we've taken a look at this slide, that's an awful lot of kids for this point in the year. You know, we continue with enrollment all the way through August. So the numbers are sort of historically high right now. And, you know, we don't know if they could just stop at some point or plateau, but they are coming in fast and furious right now. All right, the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight are our cumulative COVID cases. We've been receiving lots of messages, I think, from our building principals indicating that we've had COVID positive cases in our schools. This chart that you see in front of you is the one that was emailed to families on March 2nd. And on March 2nd, we had cumulatively, since September, 29 staff, 88 students who are in-person students, and 10 students who are remote students. And that brought us to a total of 127 people in the Hopkinton Public Schools community as of March 2nd. So if we fast forward 9 days to today, you can see that that number has now changed to 143 students. So we've had an increase of 16 students in 9 days. That's an awful lot of students. I'm sorry, an increase of 16 people in the last 9 days. How does that break out? 5 of those people were faculty, and the other 11 were students. 8 of those students are high school students. So high school parents have been emailing asking, why are they seeing this sort of preponderance of emails? And the reason that you're seeing that is because there are just a lot of cases right now at the high school. I did talk to our public health director, Sean McAuliffe, to ask about sort of the origins of those cases. And one of the things that he shared with me is that we don't need to worry that this is a cluster, because it's not. It's not as if there's one classroom or a team or, you know, some group at the high school that is all tested positive. That is not true. What is true is that, or at least what he believes is true, is that, you know, people have just sort of started to let their guard down a little bit. We're coming off of February vacation, and I think we're sort of still feeling a domino effect from that. So we've seen cases coming out of a hockey league, for example, gymnastics. There was a case that came from, you know, meeting with family at a funeral. Parents are picking it up at work and still bringing it home to their kids. And so it's all sort of the same kinds of places where kids are getting it, but it's just far more frequent now than it had been. And we are worried that people are letting their guard down. So if we could make one plea to the community, please remember still mask wearing. Try to keep, you know, with your group of people that you typically see. Don't sort of step outside of that bubble. Frequent hand washing, just do all of the things, social distancing that we know work. We do have one additional case of adult to adult transmission in the schools. So to date, we have had one at the Elmwood School. We currently have 2 at the high school. Not currently, we have currently cumulatively have 2 at the high school, and one is a case of district transmission, adult to adult. And we still have only one documented case of student to student, and that's the one that we've all known about at the middle school. All right, lots of people have written in and asked about COVID-19 pool testing. So I'm going to offer a little bit more data tonight. And these are things I think that, you know, we've been talking about all along. So one thing that the community should know is that there's product variability. We hear an awful lot about the state offering Binax testing, and it's been sort of sold as a product that is free. It is only free until April 18th. And then after that, you start to pay $5 a person for the swabs. And that doesn't sound like an awful lot of money. But what we need to remember is that even with this free product, there's about $20,000 worth of administrative costs. And you can see that in the box on the right-hand side. There's a cost every week depending upon positivity. So what would happen is if we have a batch of 10, for example, and one of those swabs comes up positive, when you have that one positive, you've got to test all of the students or all of the people who were part of that that batch or that pool. And so if the folks are outside of school, we need for them to do, maybe some kind of a drive-up testing. Even if they are in school, we're going to dismiss those kids immediately and then, do that drive-up testing outside, do the testing outside under a tent perhaps. But, when you start thinking about the costs of the additional PCR tests and the tents and those kinds of things, we're taking a look at about $9,000 estimated per week. And then you have to figure out a way to get your swabs from Hopkinton, Massachusetts to the Broad Institute or whatever lab is testing them for you. And we've looked on the state bid list, and that would cost somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So on the right-hand side, what you're seeing is an estimate right now for Binax testing. One of the problems with Binax is that Binax asks our nurses to do all of the screening at school. So, and I know we've talked about this before, so it works kind of like picture day. You're going to have kids leaving the classroom and they'll be lined up and they'll be swabbing, and then they go back into class. So once a week, they're going to lose some time on learning. And then, if you have a kid who tests positive and there is in that batch, the other 9 folks will be required to quarantine until we actually get their PCR results back. And the other thing that is true about the Binax testing is, it's heavy on our nurses. What we'd be asking our nurses to do is to conduct all of that swab testing, all of the follow-up testing. It's an awful lot of work for people who had a full-time job before there was a pandemic. So on the left-hand side, I'll talk about one of the products, and one of the products that we know about is JCM testing. JCM testing asks students to have a swab and test at home, package it up and bring it into school. And so that really preserves time on learning, and it lightens our nurses' responsibility. Those would cost a little bit more. It's $5 a student, and it's never free. So if we start this process before April 18th, we would be paying from the beginning. And the regular testing is $18 for an adult. The beauty of JCM is once all of those swabs are there at the lab, if there is one swab that tests positive, you can take the other 9 and they immediately do the reflex testing there. They know exactly who those swabs belong to. They test them and they'll let you know that student A, for example, is positive, and students, B to K are not positive, so they can stay in the building. The reflex testing is a little bit pricey. It's $49 a swab. So the startup cost for both of these would be about $20,000. We would be looking to make sure that we, hire somebody to, coordinate all of this. Somebody has to do permission slips. Somebody has to arrange the courier service. Somebody has to package the swabs. Somebody has to communicate with the lab, all of that. And again, we know that the cost for JCM, which is on your left-hand side, is about $15,000 a week, again, dependent on positivity, and a courier service for this product, same as the courier service for the other, anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So when we talk about JCM surveillance or pool testing cost estimates, a kid swab would cost us $5 at 50% participation. That would get us to about $10,000 per week over 10 weeks. An adult swab is $18, and if we estimated 400 faculty and staff wanted to participate, it's $7,200 per week. And that's one of the questionable items on this list, because the CDC is saying that once you're vaccinated, you don't really need to participate in surveillance testing. So that number 400 would probably go down over time. The reflex testing, as I've said, is $49. An estimate is, just imagine that we have to test 10. There's one positive each week over 10 weeks. We'd be at $4,900. An additional nurse is $15,000, and the courier service is $15,000. So, that kind of gets us to a place of $200,000. And of course, it's only an estimate what you're seeing on the screen. All right, I know a lot of people will say that if you engage in this surveillance screening or pool testing, whichever one of those things you want to call it, it will prevent asymptomatic positive students from entering schools. But that is not exactly true, because your students need to come into school with either their test that they've done at home or to be tested while in school. And test results turn around in typically 24 to 48 hours. So it does allow you to, rapidly isolate any of your infected people, but we do need for students to be in school to either turn in their test or to be tested. And one of the things I think that's really important to underscore about this kind of testing is it works when everyone participates in it. So if half the people participate, the other half could be walking around asymptomatic positive. So if we're going to do this, we really need for families to sign on. And if you have watched the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education meeting, somewhere about an hour and 7 minutes in, one of the doctors there does tell us that in places with very low numbers and very low transmission, pool testing offers people reassurance and comfort. And I think that that's what a community like Hopkinton could derive from using these products, as well as rapid isolation. I have met with our school nurses, and what they are hoping is that we will go with JCM. We know that it costs a little bit more, but it's a far more effective product. And how would we be funding that? Hopkinton's SSR2 grant, it came in at $211,328. One of the requirements of the SSR2 grant is that $10,000 of that money has to go to mental health. It's a requirement, so there's no negotiation there. So if we take the $10,000 out, we have $201,328, and that is enough certainly to pay for JCM. I know that we have been looking at purchasing some things like desks and those kinds of things out of this as well. 200,000 may be a high estimate because it involves 50% of our students taking part. It includes the entire 10 weeks, and it also includes all of our faculty participating. So that number is certainly a flexible kind of number. So that is all the information that we have right now about pool testing and surveillance screening. And I don't know if folks have questions, and I can stop sharing if you're ready for me to do that.
Dr. Kavanaugh, can I ask a question? So when would the testing actually begin? Did you say April 18th or 19th?
We would have to reach out to JCM and just think about how long it would take to get all of this up and running. I'm hoping that it would take us, maybe 3-4 weeks to do that. So yes, I would think probably mid-April.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Leah?
Through the chair, this is about the entire school district, correct? So these costs cover the entire school district?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we can, I think you mentioned, so we don't have to do it for any contract for any number of months or anything, or weeks. We do it for as long as we want to do it.
Yeah, I would have to check into that. I believe that you can start and stop at will.
Nancy?
I was going to, for clarification, the estimates are through the end, from whenever mid-April and through the end of the school year, or this school year?
I think what we've done is base the estimates on a 10-week period.
Thank you.
Joe?
Just to clarify, is the JCM testing the one that's a drop off the swab in the morning?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does it make sense to do that in conjunction with kind of a re-rollout of the attestation? I know we had glitches on the health track rollout, but it seems like attestation is a big thing health directors look for. And does it make sense to continue that when we do pool testing, or does it make sense to supplement pool testing with attestation? Because, at least attestation may reduce the number of people that actually have symptoms from going to school.
Sure. So our school nurses have a method that they use. The expectation is that families will let them know when children are feeling under the weather. But we can certainly, ask the health track comes from the public health officials, but we could ask them to resend information to families, certainly, and sign more people on that way. And they actually monitor that dashboard And I think what we've been seeing with this uptick at the high school is that these have not been asymptomatic positives. What we've been seeing is that people are in school feeling unwell. And when they are, showing symptoms and, then obviously they test positive and there are folks around them who need to quarantine. So, when people are using the attestation health track or our nurses product, whatever it is that we can do to keep unwell people out of the schools, that's super helpful, because it feels very unfair to your peers, whether they are, athletes or the kids who sit next to you at lunch or someone in your math class, or to have to be out of school for several days because someone else has tested positive.
Yeah, it sounds like the two go hand in hand. In the midst of all the talk of reopening, I don't want to lose the sight of the fact that there is a virus out there, right? Our hallmark has been on the precautions we put in place, and if we're increasing population, we need to double down on those precautions, even as the cases overall go down, and even as the most vulnerable population is vaccinated.
Yes. One thing that Sean shared with me that I didn't share with you earlier is that, we know that the British variant, there have been cases identified in Worcester. And so one of the things that he is looking in at the state level is to sort of get them to start doing tests in Metro West, just to see if the British variant might be here. So I thought that was very interesting and helpful to know.
Dr. Kavanaugh, just to kind of go back to basics, but the testing happens once a week. The student brings in a swab once a week. So if the student has a reason to think they might have been exposed, they wouldn't have a second swab for like later in the week, or it's on a schedule. They're done at home, but it's on a schedule weekly.
Correct, right. You would not be people who were testing children with symptoms.
Right.
You would call your pediatrician and figure out a means to have your symptomatic child tested.
Okay. I'm curious how we proceed with this. I mean, I guess the other question, we could just do it one school, right? Like I think we had something like, just look at my notes, 8 high school students. So we could potentially do just the high school if that made sense for us. Or all the faculty and just the high school students. Is that maybe an option, Dr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, you can test, whoever you want, really.
Is this something that we need to vote on, or that we sort of take under, as we talk about reopening later, we'll bring this back? I'm looking around at my people.
I don't know if it's on the agenda later or not. If this is the only time, I'd like to say I think it's a good idea to do it. I'm not sure why we would not do it at some schools. Just my initial thought. It seems like it's part and parcel with attestation for people to catch people with symptoms, and then you have testing to catch people without symptoms.
Because it's not on the agenda, I'm happy to do a little bit of research for you, and then you could just bring it back and vote, but I'll just get the process underway operationally.
I think that'd be helpful.
Right.
I like the idea. I mean, it takes a few weeks anyway to get it up and running, right? So we could bring it back next week.
Sure.
Okay. Excellent. I have one more comment on the superintendent report. I didn't know, I just want to mention that someone from the community had reached out about doing a dashboard, and there are some conversations underway Dr. Kavanaugh's having about getting a case dashboard. I mean, Dr. Kavanaugh's great about sharing the emails and the spreadsheets, but we may look into whether we can have a dashboard as part of our website so people can see cases, if it's something that doesn't add too much burden to the nurses, but can be done easily.
Yeah, I think that could be done very easily. And then it's one-stop shopping for the community if they want to find out, where we are at any given point in time.
Excellent. Any other questions on the chair report? Oh, sorry, chair report, the superintendent report. The chair report's next. Okay. Moving along, chair report. I have nothing written. I'm keeping it super brief. I do want to say that we had a budget advisory meeting today. Those continue along, and there isn't a whole lot of update on the budget other than the good news that the Biden administration had a coronavirus relief package that was passed. We don't know exactly what that's going to mean for Hopkinton, but it will mean something positive in some fashion. We don't know how much. We don't know what it will be able to be used for. Susan, there's no other key updates from the budget advisory, right? Okay. And what else? I did want to mention, because it has come up in conversation, that we are meeting remotely. Sometimes we meet in person like we did this weekend. Our number one priority is to make sure that people can access our meetings and can access them appropriately. And for a long time now, there's been a Governor Baker advisory on a number of people who can attend a meeting. So we started out the year in person. Then we've been remote because we have guests and whatnot. It goes over 10. Tonight, I think we also have a volleyball game going on at the high school, and HCAM asked us if we could stay on Zoom because they have to film there. So there are all sorts of reasons why we are remote. It's not that we don't like to be in person. It was actually very nice to be in person on Sunday. But our priority is always that the community can access our meetings effectively, and that we can bring in our guest speakers when we need to, and so forth. So I just wanted to address that. I'd been meaning to talk about that at each meeting, and I don't. And as it says in the agenda, I have approved warrants 21056, 21057, 21058, and 21059 that are included in the packet, and the payroll warrant S21018 also in the packet. Any liaison reports tonight? Okay, moving right along. So we now, I hope Mr. Keller is with us. I think he is. Oh, there he is. Hello, Mr. Keller.
Hello.
So tonight we have an update on Project 351 with Mr. Keller, and I believe Anna Naroyan. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you very much. So I'm pleased to be joined tonight by grade 8 student Anna Naroyan. She is Hopkinton Middle School's 10th Project 351 ambassador. We've been honored to be part of this important statewide program since its inception. Project 351 invites grade 8 students from Massachusetts' 351 cities and towns to unite, act, and lead for a year of service, leadership training, and teamwork. When it came time for us to select this year's ambassador, our staff put forth many outstanding candidates, and we selected Anna for many reasons, one of which is her embodiment of the HMS mission to grow an active community of strong minds and kind hearts. Anna demonstrates academic excellence in the classroom. She's an asset to every class. She is an ally. She's respectful and caring toward all. She's a team player and is a natural leader. Anna participated in a leadership academy in February and had a service kickoff last week. And that's probably enough of me talking. So at this point, I'd love to turn it over to Anna for her to talk about her experience thus far with the leadership academy and with the service project.
Thank you for all the compliments earlier. I appreciate it. So Project 351 so far, we haven't reached spring service yet, which is coming in the next week, which I'm really excited about. But so far, we've had Wednesdays and Thursdays, which are leadership lessons and leadership academy, which is pretty much just guest speakers coming in, alumni from the program, like speaking about all these different special parts of being a leader, all these different important qualities a leader has, community service and the importance of community service. And it's been really exciting so far. Launch was last week. It was really special. And yeah, it's really exciting having spring service registration coming up next week. I'm really excited for it.
Can you share a little bit about what kinds of service opportunities might be on the horizon for you, or?
So spring service is going to consist of partnering with the nonprofit Cradles to Crayons, which I'm really excited about. Spring service is the first service, season of service for this year. There will be like more opportunities later in the year, like fall service. There's a special 9/11 service, and spring service. I don't know too much about what it consists of so far because we're registering for it next week. It's going to be talked about next week. So I'm excited to learn more about it, but so far I'm really excited to start doing more community service in Hopkinton. It's going to be really exciting, and I'm excited.
Excellent. Committee members, do you have any questions for our guests?
I didn't know about questions, but wow, I am super impressed. This sounds amazing. Congratulations, Anna. Oh my God, I don't think I learned any of that until I was well into college. So you are getting a huge head start, and it sounds amazing that you're so excited about it. I love that you're taking on this opportunity and this challenge. So thank you for coming and telling us.
Thank you for having me.
I love that Mr. Keller described you as an ally. I think it's, we all need allies, and the fact that, you make yourself an ally to others who need it, that's just says a lot about you and who you are, and we really appreciate that. We need citizens like you. So thank you for that. Meg?
It's really nice to see someone rewarded, not just for their intelligence, but for their kindness. And I'm so glad that our schools recognize that. So thank you so much, Anna. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you for all that you do. Hopkins Public Schools has, over the years, developed a lot of goodwill in the community. And through the work that you do, it helps answer that question that some people sometimes ask about public education. Like, why should I pay? Why isn't it just a fee? The reason that we all pay for public education equally is that there are benefits to the community. And when you do things like this, you're making those benefits very real, and it helps us with all the efforts we have for the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I echo everything that's been said ahead of me. I don't want to be repetitive, but also just really want to thank you for coming here to share this with us, because it's always a highlight for us to have students here and to see things that are going on directly in the schools. And you have made the entire district proud. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if I may, Ms. Fargiano, you mentioned the ally piece of that. And one of the things that was highlighted when we were looking at Anna's nomination was one of her last project in media literacy was a social action project, which she was focusing on allyship. And it was a really impressive project that she put together.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. And Mr. Keller, thank you for participating in this program. And did you say it's 10 years?
Yeah, so yes, we've been participating for 10 years now. Yeah, Governor Deval Patrick started it 10 years ago.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. You are completely welcome to hang out with us for the whole night. We have lots of fun ahead. But if you need to go do homework or whatever, just relax. Anna, you're dismissed. You don't have to hang with us.
Thank you,
Thank
Anna.
you so much.
Yes, thank you, Anna, very much.
All right. Mr. Keller, I think you're staying with us, though, because we're moving on to the middle school club advisor stipend change.
Yes. Thank you very much. So as I think most of you know, that clubs and activities have been a major focal point at HMS for many years now. We have a wide range of clubs and activities that include fun things, athletic things, and some academic things. And that has been an area where we've really been trying to increase the number of offerings in terms of academic clubs. One of those areas has been Math Counts. Math Counts is a national grades 6 through 8 organization that provides extracurricular math programs. They have a goal of building confidence and improving attitudes about math and problem solving. And so we have a teacher who is interested in taking on Math Counts. That's Miss Anne Marie Lockwood. And so we've identified a funding source because one of the clubs that we have is not running this year. And so I am looking for your approval because we'd only be starting it at the halfway point. I'll be looking for, it's a partial stipend, but I'd be looking for funding for that stipend for Ms. Lockwood to initiate a Math Counts club.
Got 100% yes for me, but committee members, do you have questions about Math Counts or stipend? Or
I really love all the middle school clubs, so I make a motion to accept this.
Totally second.
Motion by Meg, second by Leah. Any other discussion? Nancy, did you want to say something before we vote?
No, I was just going to endorse my enthusiasm for it as well.
All right, so roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Meg?
Yes.
Joe,
Totally aye.
Leah,
Absolutely.
and I as well. Love it. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
And you're up again, Mr. Keller, I think, with the program of studies.
Yes. We have put together the 2021-2022 proposed Hopkinton Middle School Program of Studies. We don't have any substantial changes. However, there are three things that I want to bring to your attention. The first of which is placement into our grade 7 math classes. We are no longer, or at least for this year anyway, we're not including grade 5 MCAS performance for obvious reasons. Those students who are currently in grade 6 did not take the MCAS as grade 5 students. So we are not including that criteria. The second item is we have had a Foundations and Application of Numbers math class for grade 7 and 8 students over the years. And we are adding that for grade 6 next year. And then the third substantial change to the program of studies is for our United States and Massachusetts Government and Civic Life class, which is taught to our grade 8 students. We included an excerpt from the Department of Education's renewed mission for grade 8 standards that talks about students becoming thoughtful and active participants, embracing the potential of democracy while also recognizing challenges and dilemmas inherent in democracy.
Okay. Any questions? Sounds good. I guess
Looks good.
no questions. I think I don't know a lot about the foundations. Foundations and Numbers. I'm sorry, I don't remember the acronym, but it sounds like it might be the kind of class that could be beneficial to students who may have had some trouble, this year, who need to sort of catch up and sort of shore up the foundations, I'm assuming, which I think could be something very helpful for the coming year.
That's correct. Yes, it is. It is exactly as you described, Ms. Fargiano. It is helping students who have some gaps in their math foundational skills.
I'm so thankful that you're anticipating potential needs and kind of looking at that and bringing things like this forward for the 6th graders. So I think we need a motion to approve, as people in the community may or may not know, the middle school and high school programs of study are policy. So we vote these.
So moved.
Motion by Meg to accept.
Second.
Second by Nancy, and I need a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Meg?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much for all this work.
Thank you all very much.
All right, so we are moving on to Mr. Bishop. I saw you pop right on our screen. Welcome. We are going to talk about the high school program of studies.
Great. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. Thanks for having me. I know you have a lot on the agenda, so I promise to be brief. I'm excited to talk about the program of studies, or the proposed program of studies here at the high school for next school year. We don't have that many changes, but we do have a few that I'd like to talk about. I'd first just like to thank the SMLs, as well as the 2 assistant principals, Ms. Tice and Mr. Pominville, for their help in creating the program of studies. So we have a lot of conversations about what we need. We do a strengths and weaknesses. What are we lacking? We talk to students. So a lot of this is developed from student input, but also some of it has come from the needs and concerns that we've seen from just this past year with COVID. None of these increases or offerings will cause an increase of funding. Courses, as always at the high school, will run based solely on student interest and teacher availability. So we do have every year a number of courses in our program of studies that don't run. So just wanted to state that before I get into the new courses. So I'll start with the first one. It's called Global Citizenship, offered both at the college prep and honors level. It's in our history social science department. And this is a reading and discussion-based course that we're hoping will afford students the opportunity to examine broad social issues and specific events of the day from both a national and an international perspective. We're hoping the course will increase global awareness while also guiding students to become informed citizens of the world with a lifelong interest in the news. It is connected very closely with key elements of the MAS frameworks, specifically preparing students to have knowledge and skills to become thoughtful and active participants in the democratic society and complex world. So very excited about this, open to 9 through 11th graders, and it is a semester course. The next course that we're adding, we're also very excited about. It's called a Band and Orchestra Instrumental Primer. That's quite a mouthful. This is a little bit different. This is a course that is open to all students who wish to either begin learning a band or orchestra instrument or are interested in returning to band or orchestra before they wish to prepare and be part of our ensembles. I think we know that some of the students in this past year have maybe put down the instrument and focused on other things. And I know at the middle school, they've conducted music in a different way. We want to welcome those students back into our music program. Mr. Hay is amazing and is creating all these opportunities for our students. So as you see the credit and cycle, this is a little bit more confusing. This is going to be offered 1 to 3 times over the course of our 7-day schedule. And it's when students have free availability during a study or a free period, but they want to sign up for this course and work with Mr. Hay. Or maybe they have a conflict with their science class. So it's going to depend on their schedule, but we wanted to create the opportunity for students to get back into the band, back into the orchestra, so they can join our ensembles in the future years. So we're excited about that. The next group of courses, I think I titled them under student support. I know Mr. Keller did a really nice job of explaining some of the things that they're doing at the middle school. I think it's a year to the day, actually, that we went remote. I think it was March 11th. Someone sent an email to me today saying, remember this email you sent this day last year? And it said, I don't have all the answers. And I laughed that I still don't have all the answers. But, you know, obviously we know that it's been tough on everybody from an academic, from a social, emotional, mental well-being standpoint. So we're really trying to focus some classes on offering support to our students. The first is a class called Stress and Anxiety Management, also a one-time-a-cycle course. This will be a pretty small group. The recommendations will be made by counselors, and it's really to provide students with strategies and coping skills in order to manage stress effectively. So that will be a course that will be run both semesters, recommendations made by the counseling department, and again, kind of a smaller group format for that class. In terms of an academic focus, I think Mr. Keller, like I said, talked about it a little bit. We're seeing some students based on teacher conversations, talking with parents, talking with students, that there's a need for additional skill building, a little bit more practice work. So we wanted to take some of our remediation courses that we have now that are a little bit informal. Our guidance department is amazing. They work with students. When we see that there's an issue with the teachers, we try to create opportunities to get extra help now, but we wanted to formalize it and get students some credits. So we're focusing on a math remediation course, open grades 9 through 12, teacher counselor recommendation. And again, it's going to fit in when they have time in the schedule, anywhere from 1 to 3 times. Same thing with ELA remediation, focusing on reading and writing and reading comprehension, grammar, vocabulary, the writing process, which we're excited to have that, as well as a biology remediation course, which we've had for a number of years. As we all know, biology is the MCAS tested subject at the high school. So we wanted to provide additional support specifically as we prepare students in that sophomore year for MCAS. So that one will be a little bit more 9 and 10 grade focused. The ELA is open in math to any student in any grade. And then our last course that we're adding that we're really excited about really is connected to our strategic plan when we talk about our diversity strand and honoring and advancing cultural awareness and proficiency through curriculum and instruction. So this course really addresses that. Right now, I know many of you have had students that have gone through the high school or are still at the high school. We have a freshman guidance seminar. So when students come in from the middle school, the first 6 weeks of the semester, they meet with a guidance counselor to talk about how the high school works, talk about how things work. Students come in, upperclassmen talk about the experience, and then it stops midway through the semester. And then we used to have a technology seminar, but now the students could probably teach the adults the technology seminar. So it's really more of a free period for students, which I know they love. But we're going to fit this Respecting Human Differences seminar in that time slot. So it's going to go freshman guidance seminar to Respecting Human Differences seminar. And we're hoping this seminar is going to be taught by a kind of collection of folks who are interested, from the administration to SMLs and some of our teachers and some of the departments that we have. So it's going to be a team effort and a PLC in that regard. And it's really going to afford our students the opportunity to explore and appreciate human differences insofar as social constructs like race, ethnicity, class, ideology, in religion, as well as differences in sexuality, gender, and ability, among others. And we're really hoping, as always, to foster and uphold an inclusive environment here at HHS, and we're excited about this class. So still, we're working on the lessons, what's going to be part of it. More information will come. We'll provide that to families, but that's, again, a half semester, kind of an old quarter kind of class at the high school. So those are the new classes that we're offering. Again, not a lot of other changes, but really excited about some of the courses that we're going to bring on next year.
Awesome. Committee members, I'm sure there are questions or comments.
I think
Meg?
Go ahead.
Meg, go ahead.
these are such great offerings, very exciting. I love the global citizenship and the stress and anxiety management, which will you open it up to us adults too?
Yeah, we'll have a night class for the adults. Yeah.
And respecting human differences, we could take that too. But these are great. Thank you so much, Mr. Bishop. Very exciting intellectually and psychologically for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
Leah.
I think I was pretty much going to say what Meg said. I was really excited with the respecting human differences piece, but I'm even more excited to hear that it's part of the freshman curriculum as opposed to just a random class that anybody can select to be in or out of. So I think that's really powerful that you're going to have the freshmen all going through that. Stress and anxiety, my gosh, yes. And I am actually really excited about the orchestra thing, and I hope that it remains in your curriculum even past this point, because I think there are a lot of students who feel kind of intimidated trying to start instruments in high school, right? With all these people who are so great, it's a very hard thing. And so I really like the fact that you're starting this class for students who actually may really want to do something like this and have never done it before. So
Thanks. Nancy?
So I love when you come in and you talk about the courses that are being added, and we look at the ones that didn't generate interest and are therefore being subtracted. I echo the comments that have already been made about both the music piece and also the respecting the differences, but also I think the remediation courses are really timely. I know that a lot of parents have expressed concerns about what's going to happen when we go to next year. How are we going to help kids as well as the stress and anxiety? So thank you for considering all of that. And always, it does kind of make me wish my high school had had some of these offerings back in the day.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, the electives are what make it fun. I think I'm always impressed to hear the electives amidst a really stellar core curriculum that you're able to introduce students to topics that might be of long-term interest to them is really one of the things that makes it a special experience for Hopkinton students. Thank you.
You.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think, just when I'm starting to really stress about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in the fall, and these kids are going to come in. Of course, you come in and you've thought it through, and you're always 14 steps ahead of where any of my worries ever are. And it's just so comforting when, you come through and you share these great plans that you have. And, it just reminds me repeatedly over and over again that our kids are in really good hands. And, I'm just thankful for all this thought and forethought for next year, and great offerings. Love it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Certainly a team effort, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Kavanaugh and Ms. Parson and Ms. Zucker for helping to develop the Respecting Human Differences seminar. They've been a big part of that, as well as Ms. Tice. So I just wanted to thank them, and then Ms. Elam and Ms. Crucifulli and Ms. Smith for their work on the remediation courses. They do a tremendous amount. So it's, like I said, a team effort, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I will entertain a motion.
You're waiting for me. So moved.
Meg the motioner. Motion by Meg.
second.
Second by Leah. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Meg.
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you so much. I'm really excited for our kids and what you're providing them.
Thank you so much.
Okay. That brings us to the reopening plan. So Dr. Kavanaugh, I had sent you some slides or shared some slides with you earlier today. Mr. Bishop, you don't have to leave. No, you can if you want. I'm just kidding.
No, I just shut my video off. I'm here. If any questions come up regarding the high school schedule and lunch in particular, I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. I think we're going to take them in ascending order of age. So both of you, if you want to hang out in the wings for a moment, that'd be great. Thank you. All right. So just for the community's sake, so what we have tonight is 3 motions to talk about. Really, it's 3 plans to talk about, and we're going to take them each individually. I'd like to take a moment to kind of just remind people what the different plans are. So we'll start with the K-5. We can have committee discussion. As everyone knows, we had a working session on Sunday where we were able, it feels like that was 4 months ago, but we had a working session on Sunday where we were able to talk about some of the details in the plans that we want clarity on or more information on. Since that time, we've been continuing to ask questions of Dr. Kavanaugh individually to get clarity on things that we feel we need to understand better before we can vote. Also, as people probably are aware, there has been quite a lot of information coming from the Commissioner of Education's office. So there have been new guidelines and requirements, is I think what he's calling them. So all of that kind of comes together tonight in a discussion, and we're going to take each model, the K-5 first. We'll talk about it. And if we are in a position where we feel like we as a committee can vote, we will vote that. And then if not, we will identify what information we need so that we can vote. And then we'll move on to the next one. So you have 3 of these to go through. And if you have the slides, Dr. Kavanaugh, do you have them? Mm-hmm. Okay. They're not pretty. They're just black and white. No pretty. Dr. Kavanaugh always has very nice templates. So this is the K-5, and actually I have our faces blocking some of the slides here, so let's move us. This is just sort of a snapshot for discussion and to ground us all in the K-5 model. So on the right-hand side, you can see the sort of the basics of the model. We've been instructed by the commissioner that we would open full-time to full in-person learning, not open, but return to full in-person learning no later than April 5th of 2021. We can certainly vote to go earlier, but we are required to be in person by April 5th. The scheduling that we are proposing, or Dr. Kavanaugh and the team and the reopening advisory group proposed, is the basic pre-pandemic daily schedule in terms of start time of the school day, end time of the school day, and the general flow of the school day. The model that is proposed offers a social distancing of 3 to 4 feet from center of desk to center of desk. And 6 feet, of course, that is when everyone is masked. 6 feet of social distance would be offered in situations where people are unmasked, like at lunch or a mask break. Wherever possible, we are going to try to separate teacher desks from the student desks by 6 feet. Of course, teachers move around the room, and it's not always possible, but that is an objective. We are continuing to do all the risk mitigation that we have been doing, and our risk mitigation has been phenomenal. We invested very heavily in the fall, in the summer really, to get up and running in our hybrid model, and those mitigation measures are really doing well. Mask wearing, first and foremost. We all know that's the #1 way to protect ourselves and others. Continuing with hand hygiene and all that, hand sanitizer and hand washing. We have excellent ventilation, and we can continue to open windows, especially on a day like today with 70 degrees. It was lovely. Surface cleaning, etc. All of those risk mitigation measures that we have in place will continue. At the elementary level, there's cohorting, and I think in the Hopkins, there's sort of a team structure as well, just by virtue of the fact that elementary students are in a designated classroom. That is their cohort. It sort of is a smaller group of kids with whom they come in contact every day. So there's cohorting, and that does help reduce exposure. Lunch in the elementary school will be provided and will be spread across the cafeteria and the gym primarily, I think with the library as a backup. And there will be 6 feet of social distance. Because we'll be eating lunch in the gym, we will have physical education classes now outdoors wherever possible. In the case of inclement weather, there may be a wellness lesson that is taught in the classroom. Snack is currently not being eaten in class, and we will continue to not allow snack in class. Snacks will be eaten in appropriate locations when there is 6 feet of social distance, just like they're doing today. Mask breaks will be provided. According to the commissioner, you can still, if you feel this is best for your student, opt for fully remote. We have families who need that option, and that is still available and will be honored through this school year. We don't know beyond that at this point. And it does come up a lot, so I just want to take a minute and talk about social emotional learning supports that we have. For students in the elementary level, we do have adjustment counselors and guidance counselors and the BRIGHT program. We have invested pretty heavily in social emotional support in the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. This has been a hot topic and a focus for the district. And it's great that we have so much in place. The scaffolding is there for us, for students who need supports. And the faculty also has a fabulous HR program and employee assistance program. We know faculty at times need support as well, and our HR department is there for them. So that's the look of the K-5 model in a snapshot. On the left-hand side is a quick summary of costs and some of the primary concerns that were raised. In fairness, I think it's accurate to say, and committee members can correct me, that in general, the elementary families were not the ones with the most concerns about the model. I mean, we heard a lot from middle and high school students on all sides of the argument, but we didn't hear quite as much from the elementary grades. Cost to make this model work would involve purchasing desks for lunch and for some classes, and that's about $83,000, which would come from a mix of our existing capital funds that were already approved and appropriated to outfit our new modular classrooms with desks. So we have capital funds that are already at our disposal for furniture, and some ESSER grant money would cover the balance. We may also, in addition to the $83,000, we may be hiring lunch monitors. Dr. Kevin, I think there's a posting for those, right?
There is indeed.
Okay. And of the primary concerns that were raised, and committee members, feel free to round out this list. It was a quick brain dump for me. Student transitions, will students be keeping their current teachers? And they will, unless they are changing from remote to in-person or in-person to remote, in which case there may be new teachers involved. But if you are currently hybrid and you're going to full-time in person, you should be with the same teacher. Class sizes, as we heard back Thursday at the public forum, are going to be the typical class sizes that we have. I think Elmwood, if I recall correctly, had the largest class sizes, could be up to 24. I think Hopkins was up to 21 or 22, and Marathon, I think, was 18 to 20-ish range. That's from memory, but they're the typical class sizes. We're not seeing anything larger than we have been seeing with our enrollment growth. There have been some questions about quarantine. What happens if we have to quarantine? And we'll handle quarantining the same way we do currently, where work is pushed out to students and teachers check in with them. In some cases, teachers can teach remotely if they're able. So this is the sort of the thumbnail scope. We're going to stick on this one. Thumbnail sketch of K-5. Committee members, first of all, are there other prime concerns that you heard from the community that you want to just call out as for the K-5 group? Nancy?
So I just did kind of want to, I know that there had been people who had asked about the waiver, and that just to highlight that the commissioner was explicit in saying that the conditions that would not be accepted for a waiver would be things like the people wanting more than the 3 feet of social distance, that would not be accepted. So that just to highlight that our plan appears to be in compliance with what the commissioner is asking for, and that we would be unlikely to be able to get a waiver even if that was what we chose to do or to seek.
That's a good point. Dr. Kavanaugh, I know that the hearing was posted on the website. Do you happen to know if the guidance document was posted?
Oh, I don't think that it was, but we can get that up there. And the other document that has come out recently is the study that the commissioner references about 3 feet and 6 feet in Massachusetts schools, and the number of COVID cases. And I mean, essentially the study finds that the differences between 3 feet and 6 feet have proved negligible. But we can get that up there as well in case people would like to have access to it.
Thank you. So committee members, what concerns or conversation do you want to have about the K-5 model? And the date is currently no later than April 5th. I think originally our recommendation from the reopening advisory group was March 29th. So I don't know where people are. As the community knows, we don't really get to talk unless you see us talking. So last time you saw us talking was Sunday, and here we are again. So, Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Of the things listed here, well, of letters I read, I mean, a lot of people are concerned that their younger kids are regressing, socially or developmentally on those days home. Anyway, but this one's taken care of for us, other than we had initially said April 29th, this is saying April 5th. On risk mitigation, I guess, I would like to see consistently across schools that we have all this, but I think if we end up deciding on that pool testing, that's another risk mitigation. I really would like to see, because I was one of those on the health track attestation thing that thought it was a spam or phishing attempt, so I ignored it. And I think that if we were to re-roll that out with proper advanced communication, I think we would get a lot of pickup. I'd like to see that as something we put for K-5 in all the schools too.
I can reach out to public health and ask them to resend that.
Again, so we don't roll it out the same way as before, it would require some kind of communication ahead of time that as part of the reopening, we're going to re-roll this out. But if you all agree.
So can I comment? I agree. I think that's a great idea, Joe. I also have noted that the health track, I have seen a lot of people getting emails from them that may not have subscribed to them initially. So I think that having communication from people to know that this is not spam, that this is something that we're looking to offer up for their students.
And it's worth saying it's pretty easy to use. We fill it out every day. It's fast.
Great, thank you. Leah?
So, so today we're voting on the model, right? And we're voting on the date.
I'm hoping, let me put it this way. I'm hoping that we can vote the K-5 model and the date today.
I just wanted to be clear that that's what we're voting. And so when I look at the model, this is definitely a very clear, consistent model that covers all the bases that need to be covered. As Nancy said, we have really no recourse in terms of waivers. Our building can handle the children within 3 to 4 feet. We have mitigations for lunch, and the date is set for us. So it's really hard to argue against this at all. The model is the best model we can have in these circumstances, and I think a lot of work went into it. So I guess that's my stance on things right now.
I think it looks great. And I'm glad that the teachers are now beginning to get vaccinated. So by the time the elementary schools open, I think a lot of people will have had their first shots at least.
Well, I don't have anything else to add. I will entertain a motion. I think this is a fairly clear-cut situation. I'm happy financially that this money is not something we have to find in the operating budget, because our operating budget is tight. So I'm happy that we have grant money. We are hoping, we don't know, we're hoping with the passage of the Biden coronavirus relief today or yesterday, eventually through the system will come some additional grant money. But even with what we already know of, we think that we can afford these desks, and we will have them available to us in the fall as we need to continue, if and as we need to continue social distancing over meals. So I would be happy to entertain a motion on K-5.
Before a motion, can I ask about the date too? Because it says no later than April 5th. In our reopening plan, I know it was aggressive, but we said March 29th. Through you, Amanda, could we have the superintendent explain why not the 29th, or is the 29th open, just depending on our vote?
Good point. Dr. Kavanaugh?
Sure. So I will recommend that we go with the 5th. It seems pretty logical that we would just go with the date that Desi has put forth for us. And we have said it many, many times that there are so many pieces of furniture that need to be moved. Just today, the elementary principals got the results of the survey. And you would think that oh, that's great. They know exactly who needs to move, but you'd be very much surprised at how many people don't fill out the survey. So now we have to reach out to all of those folks just to make sure that if they're remote, they're staying remote. If they are hybrid, they're transitioning to the full-time model. If somebody needs to flip-flop. So, and then the other piece that people I don't think know about elementary placement is when a child in the remote setting says, I want to go now full time, and we take a look across 9 or 10 elementary teachers. We look at the class size, we look at the child's needs, we look at the right pairing with that particular teacher's sort of approaches to teaching, personality, and then we say, are there any other needs? So are there ESOL services or reading services or math services or special education services? So all of that is considered. And even if you have only 20 kids in a school, say, for example, at Hopkins, that may want to come back full time, all of that rescheduling takes a very, very long time with placement. So I think April 5th allows us to do the work that we need to do and do it purposefully and meaningfully and give kids the best start on the 5th as coming back full time.
Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. I'm curious, are things looking promising for getting all the remote kids who want to come back full in person?
So I don't want to comment on that. I just want the building principals to take a look at that first. But I think, in having a conversation with Mrs. Valello today, there were a couple of students that she thought, oh, it's going to be hard to place them. But, I think our goal is always to get kids back in school. So I think, yes, I will say things are promising for sure. Yes. Yes. And, that's what the commissioner wants. He wants all of our kids back in.
He does, yeah.
Yes.
Joe, does that help?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to close it out. Thank you.
Yeah. So we had a motion, we have a motion written on the agenda using the April 5th date. If we want to put that forth, we can. If a member would like to make an adjustment to that motion, we can.
And Amanda, to clarify, would the motion reference the reopening plan document or what exactly? Just as worded in the packet, I guess is what you're saying. Is that it?
It is to approve the K-5 reopening plan as presented in the reopening advisory report with the revised reopening date of April 5th, 2021 is how it's written.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Meg, and I need a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Meg?
Yes.
Joe?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And we will welcome all of our students back to the elementary schools by April 5th. Very exciting. And I have to say, just sidebar, it's very exciting to hear about all the incoming kindergartners. I mean, I know you have to schedule them, but I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about the enrollments, and it's great. Fun.
Yes.
It's good.
And one thing I didn't mention earlier is we've had a couple of homeschooled families want to make their return. So that's exciting as well.
All right, well, thank you. And thank you to everyone behind you, Dr. Kavanaugh, who is making this possible. And I just want to say, again, I've said it in a couple of emails to people, and I know I'm speaking for the committee when I say thank you for starting this work early, because had we gotten this directive, last week and started from a blank sheet of paper, I don't quite know where we'd be. So I'm thankful that this work has been underway and that we've been able to take the time to really understand the science, the risks and risk mitigation that works, and really make the best use of our spaces, order desks. I mean, there's just get a whole plan in place. So thank you. I know it's been a lot of work, and it seems quick to some people, but it's been a long time that you've been working on this. And we commissioned the committee in December. And so just thank you so much for this.
Yes, and people shouldn't thank me. They should thank our building and grounds and custodians and building principals and Linda Henderson and all of our teachers and all of our paraprofessionals and secretaries. They are really doing amazing behind the scenes work. People don't, I mean, I know I could say things like, we have so much furniture to move, and it sounds like an afternoon of moving furniture, but you don't know how many desks need to go in the room until the teacher tells you, I need 17 desks in this room. And then someone's got to lug all of those from somewhere and get them all in there. but the custodian just puts them in, and then the teacher's going to rearrange all that furniture. So, I mean, a lot of things happen in the way of, and that has to happen over hundreds of classrooms all over the district. So it's a lot of work, and thank you for that.
Okay, on to the next one, please. This is grades 6 to 8. I need to get our little faces out of the way. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so grades 6 to 8, as we heard from the commissioner, we have to get our 6th to 8th grade students back in full in person no later than April 28th. That's our directive. That is a Wednesday. I'm not sure where the date came from, but it's Wednesday, April 28th. Scheduling, the middle school is going to return to what looks like a September 2020 schedule, which is the schedule that they put in place at the beginning of the year that involves cohorting, and in large part, teachers are rotating while students are staying in the classroom to sort of, again, reduce risk of traffic in the hall and so forth. So they're returning to that September 2020 schedule. Same social distancing as we just talked about at the elementary level. Risk mitigation is just what we talked about at the elementary level. And again, retaining the cohorting and the team structures that Mr. Keller has worked very hard. And I think Mr. Keller's still here. So Mr. Keller, feel free to join us if you like. Maintain the cohorting that Mr. Keller's worked hard to put in place. Lunch in the middle school will be served. It'll be spread across the cafeteria, the gym, and the auditorium as necessary to accommodate the 6 feet of social distance. Physical education will probably largely be offered in the Doyle gym or outdoors. We'll continue to have mask breaks. Again, you can still opt for fully remote at least through the end of this year, as far as we know. It is, if you are fully remote, that is allowed by DESE. And the same kind of social emotional supports that we have in the elementary school, we also have in the middle school. The current design of the model really brings our kids in similarly to the way they would normally come to school. There are currently no direct costs that are linked to the middle school reopening. I think we are repurposing, scavenging, etc., furniture from all corners of the earth to provide the lunch spaces. I think I heard use of like some science tables and other just furniture that is existing in places in the middle school is going to be used in the gym and so forth to provide lunch. So we're not buying desks in this case that I know of. The concerns that we've heard a lot about are student transitions, class sizes, and risk mitigation. And I think the transitions are again about how many kids might have to get new teachers, because it is hard to change after 6 months of being with one teacher to be reassigned. We have seen, those of you who have watched the last couple of meetings that we've had, we've heard from Dr. Kavanaugh that there are some grade 6 ELA students who have double block ELA, and one or both blocks will be reassigned to some of the 6th graders. We have some 7th grade math students who have a teacher now, and they're going to revert back to a teacher they had previously. And we have some grade 8 math reassignments that will be necessary as well. Not the majority of students. The majority of students will keep their teachers, but we will have some reassignments in order to keep all the other teams and cohorting and everything together. Class sizes, from what we've heard, there's a range from a low of 10 to a high of around 32. I think at one point there was a number of 35 in one class, but I think that class has been addressed. Is that right, Dr. Kavanaugh? There's no longer a 35-person class.
We are in the process of addressing that, and I should let Mr. Keller answer that for you. He's far more qualified to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so, I can, if it's okay, I just kind of want to jump in on the whole scheduling puzzle. And I know that Dr. Kavanaugh touched on this Sunday at the working session, but there's a lot of complications, not to go woe is us at the middle school, but because of our teaming structure, we believe very strongly in having teams. The team structure is really created for students at this young adult age, so they have connections and they can feel as though they're part of a small family. They're coming from elementary students, and I won't, my pitch won't go on too long, but they're coming from the elementary model where they have just, you know, 2 teachers, and they're in that kind of comfortable cohort to the middle school where we begin to prepare them for high school, but yet treat them as they come to us age appropriately. But teaming is a huge part of what we do. So despite the fact that we went to the cohort model, obviously because of COVID-19 this year, teams are still really important. And we want teachers to be able to talk about the students that are on their team and the students to connect with those teachers. And we've consistently heard from our students as part of the school council how important that connection has been this year, how they really feel as though this year the communication with teachers and the connection that they've made with them has made them feel comfortable in this building, even though those that are coming into school are only coming in every other day. And of course, we're talking about our hybrid students, our remote students, though we do have a fair amount of them that want to come into the building now that we're doing a full opening. Our remote students have the same thing, is that connection with their teachers has been really important, given the fact that they're not coming into the building. So I'll stop there, but the team thing, it complicates our scheduling substantially. But you'll see that when we look at grade 6, we don't have tremendous, other than what you mentioned a moment ago, Ms. Fargiano, is the double block of English has kind of created a little bit of a problem, because if we didn't have some students moving to a different teacher, they would be repeating related arts. But we don't have the class size problems that we do in 7th and 8th grade. And that comes from having math levels. So in grade 7, we have 3 math levels. And then in grade 8, we have 4 math levels. And so the number of students who are in each of those levels varies considerably. And then of course we have 3 language choices at grades 7 and 8. And so with the number of staff that we have, and in foreign language, we have we have a part-time staff member. And so with all those complications, it makes scheduling pretty difficult. And so over the summer, our goal was to have classes of 12 pretty much, throughout, so that if we do come back together, we could come back together and we just have classes of 24, but it just doesn't work that way with all of those things that I just mentioned. So anyway, that's a long answer, but ultimately the question, Ms. Fargiano, was around the class size of 35 in math. So we are still in the process of making adjustments and looking at that to try and get it down, but it is difficult to do. So we're not quite where we want to be still, but that is still being addressed.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, and don't feel rushed, because I think we have a lot of questions here. So I think if you have things to share, please feel free to jump in. Just to kind of close on our bullets, and we'll open up for discussion. Risk mitigation has come up, concerns about density in the classrooms, especially with gear. I think people may or may not realize that typically in the middle school, students use lockers, but in COVID times, we don't use lockers. Now, I happen to know, having had recent high schoolers, that in high school, lockers are not, they're there. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not being used by kids. So I think the middle schoolers are sort of adopting some of those high school no locker techniques early this year because of COVID. But it is different, and you do have to have your backpack at your desk, and the desk back in the room. And so there has been some question about, will it be crowded just with stuff, as well as students, and some questions about quarantining. Again, I think the plan is to handle quarantining the way we do today. But Mr. Keller, I don't know if you have any comments about classroom density or anything in risk.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain. So when we're looking at those larger cohorts, we're looking again at our entire building map, and so. Having been in the hybrid model for our in-person students, we were able to have, class sizes of 12 or so that could fit in the classroom. So as we look to have larger class sizes now, obviously we're looking at different spaces that we haven't necessarily been using at this point. So there's a couple classrooms in our related arts wing that have been for teacher meetings that we're looking to utilize. So there is greater square feet in those classrooms where we can get more students in them. And again, it comes down to those classes over 30 and still trying to figure out the riddle. But it's a, like all the schools, I think we're all interested and motivated to have students back in school because this is where they belong. And there's a lot of moving pieces and parts. So, we've begun, as Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned earlier, looking at the different furniture options and having kind of bits and pieces move here and there. And also part of that is looking at the different rooms and the cohorts. And of course, we got the data. I think the survey closed today at noon. So we're also trying to address students coming from remote. More students than I anticipated, quite honestly, want to come in from remote into in-person. So it's looking at where we can add those into the cohorts. And then we do have some students that are opting to not come into the full opening. And so how we can fit those in the remote classes. So I guess I don't remember what the original question was. I apologize.
That's good. No, just general chit chat. That's fine.
Okay.
No, it was about risk mitigation, but I think you covered it. So committee members, what questions or concerns or thoughts do you have about the grade 6 to 8 model and or the date and or your readiness to vote it? I can't see Leah. You fell off my screen, I think. So just speak up.
I think in Sunday's session, we had some questions, but between now and then, I think we've contacted Dr. Kavanaugh individually, and we've learned that Mr. Keller and the middle school administration is working on those class numbers, as he's just said. So I feel much comforted by that. But I also know that there's still some work to be done in reducing those numbers and making sure everybody feels as comfortable as they can. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank Ms. Tyler. If you don't mind me just kind of commenting on that, I think so. One of the things that we're looking at, and one of the possibilities in looking at those large cohorts right now, is the possibility of, again, depending on as we look to bring in students who are remote and where they could fit, is a possibility of communicating with some families, which obviously is going to take some time, but to say, would you be open to having your child change teachers and those kinds of things? We want to do this as easily without too much shock as possible. So, again, that's something that we've talked about, because our goal was to not change students' teachers. But I also realize that not a lot of people, myself included, would want a child in a class of 30. And so if there's different ways that we can look at reducing those class sizes, we are going to try and employ those and communicate with families to see if that might be something that they would be open to doing.
Thank you. Nancy?
So I'll be totally honest. The middle school model initially, because of some of these challenges, it took me a little bit more to kind of wrap my brain around. And I am happy that you have had the opportunity to help us along the way to understand what has caused some of these classes to be so large, and to understand why the cohorts are not as easily married, for lack of a better word, together as I think the layperson might have expected. The class sizes, the potential for switching teachers, and the potential for the transitions for these kids are always a concern. I know we're also, there is a large mandate that we have, not just from the state, but also just from the concerns of having people that people have expressed over their children not being in person. I would be interested in talking about the date as a group. I think that would be kind of an important piece before we move this forward, just because I know we are mandated to bring it by the 28th, but we have had dates. I think the original date for this was March 29th, which obviously is not, when the elementary school is not going in, does not seem like a feasible date, but I would want to be able to understand some of the reasons that we might consider a later date, and kind of some of the challenges, other than I know for myself, the ability for teachers to be vaccinated, more teachers to be vaccinated, is appealing, and kind of looking at some of that stuff, but some of the challenges that people foresee with implementing this on the earlier versus the later side. I was wordy.
Nancy, do you have I think it's good for us to talk about the date. Do you have any specific thoughts on the date? Do you like Wednesday?
So I'm not a fan of the kind of the midweek date of the 28th that Desi proposed. It just seems like odd, and I would guess, although I would never presume to know this, but I would guess that midweek would be a more difficult implementation time for any of the schools to do. I would prefer something later than April 5th. I think that April vacation is unfortunate timing and planning all of this, because it kind of moves us to almost an either or, with not a lot of taking out a week of middle ground there.
Okay, thank you. Meg?
I agree. I was going to propose April 26th, right after April break, and that should give us enough time for Mr. Keller to sort out what needs sorting out. But I'm not sure how you all feel about that.
That was a date that I had sort of thought in the back of my head and it is encouraging that you're looking to be able to tackle some of these problems that at first glance had seemed like there was no solution to, just from the angle that we sit at. And if that would help, I would be in favor of moving to the 26th too.
May I respond
Please.
to that? Yeah, I mean, so as I said earlier, I think all of us as principals want to get the kids back as soon as possible. Having said that, all the things I presented earlier and the challenges, Mrs. Benbenick and our 3 guidance counselors have been working day and night on a lot of these pieces. And now with the survey data that we got back, and as Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned earlier, still having to track down the people who didn't fill out the survey and making sure that we're honoring their request. And on top of that, the substantial amount of furniture that needs to be moved. I would certainly want to advocate for a return after April vacation.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, thanks. I agree with Nancy about Wednesday start is kind of awkward, so don't like that. I do also agree, like originally we talked about March 29th for all schools, and we have been working on this reopening plan since January. And I wonder, from observing other environments I've been in where we accelerate launch dates for products and things, and somehow we pull it all together and get it done. And when we push out dates, people push out the start time that they start trying to figure it out. So with the K-5 pushing out from March 29th to April 5th, I could be convinced of that, and I was. But to push out a full month on operational issues that I think could be done sooner concerns me. I would rather be setting a higher bar for you to try to achieve, not necessarily March 29th or even April 5th, but I would argue there could be, and I would posit for the committee's consideration, whether there may be operational benefit in opening just that 1 week before vacation, so we can see what things need to be ironed out, and have that April vacation week to do the ironing out of moving in desks or moving things around if needed. That April 12th date to me is rather convenient in that it's 1 week ahead of April vacation. So those are my thoughts. I would like us to consider the context in which we're considering April 28th. We've been working as a district since January to get things open. And I would like us to be, since we started a couple months ahead of the rest of the state, to be able to open earlier than the rest of the state.
Okay, I'm just looking at my calendar. So we're the 11th right now. So you're saying, well, hypothetically, just as an alternative, you're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4.5 weeks to the 12th of April, as something to consider. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope I have April vacation week correct. Is that the right dates?
I think your vacation week is the 19th, right?
19th.
Yeah. Leah, did you have any thoughts on dates?
So my personal feeling is that I believe that our principal has probably done what he can to make things as quick as possible. I'm very likely, based on sort of my own leading a group at work and working with a lot of professionals, to kind of give him, his expertise in this. So if he's saying the 26th is what he would need in order to be comfortable that he has done what he can to accommodate and secure, that everything is going to go as smoothly as possible and that the students will be in the classrooms as comfortably as possible, I'm very comfortable with with sort of going with his guideline on that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I have to say, on the one hand, I'm thrilled that we have so much defined, and I feel like, well, we know what we're going to do. Let's just do it. Easy peasy, right? But on the other hand, I also know that the devil's in the details, and it's the last inch that'll kill you sometimes. So I think I agree with you, Lee. I think, Mr. Kelly, you are closest to the reality of the scheduling challenges, having just today received the majority of the surveys that you need to know what families have opted for, and now starting that process. And also, I think you have music choice, don't you? I think you have band, you have a lot of stuff going on in the middle school. I think there's a lot of scheduling.
Well, yes, I mean, it's, and I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Markey. I certainly do. I guess I feel as though, as I think Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned earlier, there's, this time of year is complicated anyway. We're scheduling students for next year and working with developing that. We're in the process that we start interviews next week for open positions. Even though MCAS has been postponed, we are still planning for it. And so I feel like as much as I would love to say we're going to make this happen and we'll work it out, I do feel like it's a lot more complicated than pushing out a product in terms of preparing classrooms for students.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, could you describe some of the items that would be at risk? And my apologies, I don't mean to oversimplify the task before you, but could you outline some of the risks you see in only having 4.5 additional weeks from now? What are some of the things that might go wrong?
Well, so it's some of the things we talked about earlier. So the classes that are currently above what we typically want. So our goal for class sizes traditionally pre-COVID has been 25. So in looking at those classes that kind of go above 27, it's not as simple as saying, okay, let's just take this kid from here and move him or her over here. Not every kid, but so many kids have unique individual schedules, whether it's again, as Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned earlier about the elementary model, there's a keep away from this student and we can't put him or her in that cohort, or there's a child on an IEP or a 504. In addition, it's looking at math levels, language levels. So that is kind of number one, is how we are going to manage what we knew prior to noon today, how we can manage those cohorts. The second piece is tracking down the people who did not complete the survey, and assuming there's a vote tonight on the return date and what that will look like, they will have more information. That I know that some people have been reluctant to complete the survey because they didn't feel like they had enough information. So tracking down those parents to understand what their choice is for their child. And then those parents who did complete the survey and said that they want to make a different choice, a different selection. It's finding new classrooms for cohorts that are now larger than what can fit in the current classroom. And it's just it's hundreds and hundreds of schedule changes that we will need to make. Working with our data team, so Linda Henderson and Lisa Carty, who will have to manage all those schedule changes. Yeah, I think that being able to have, and it's being able to have the week over April vacation to have dedicated time to working through all these issues where there's not the day-to-day stuff that takes time anyway, would make me feel as though we are going to be able to be where we need to be for the first day of welcoming back the majority of our students.
If I may follow up through the chair, in all of those things you're saying can't be done in 4.5 additional weeks. Is that correct? And then also if you could comment on, as part of the reopening team, had you raised concern that March 29th was too early? But primarily I'm curious, all these things you mentioned, is it, the date I suggested is still 4.5 weeks out? There's no hope of getting that stuff done in 4.5 weeks?
I don't have confidence that that we would be able to get it where we want it to be able to tell parents that class sizes are at a reasonable point, that we're able to meet our goals of students on IEPs that I know has been a concern for many families. I feel like, so I guess my answer to that is yes, I do not feel as though 4 weeks with the number of tasks in front of us, which essentially, preparing for this year took essentially an entire summer. And although we certainly had a reopening planning committee that met and went over a lot of these things, we didn't begin the work of really pulling all of this together and looking at schedules until we had some of these answers. So yes, I have been uncomfortable with the March 29th date from the get-go.
I think it's easy to overlook the fact that while you're doing all this, which is very fun, there's just being a principal. Like before this year, that was really the whole job. And so there, you have students coming in, you have classes, you have teachers, you have, planning, and this is clearly a challenging additional administrative layer that you've had for this entire year since last March. So I certainly can appreciate what you're saying. It's not that you have nothing else on your to-do list.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I also totally understand the questions. I certainly do.
Can I make a motion?
Meg, you can always make a motion. There's actually a draft motion, but it just doesn't have a date in it.
Well, could I then make a motion to approve the middle school reopening plan with an opening date of April 26th?
Okay, so moved. Motion by Meg. Anyone want to second that motion?
Second.
Is there more discussion? We have a second by Leah. Is there any more discussion? We have a motion to open the middle school on April 26th, the Monday after April vacation. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote if there's no discussion. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Meg?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Joe?
Nay.
And I'm an aye, so that's 4-1, and we have approved a reopening as of April 26th for the middle school. Mr. Kelly, you have a lot to do. I hope that you can get it done. I do appreciate that each day that goes by is another day to solve some of the problems and the challenges that the full reopening with risk mitigation brings. So hopefully we have ample time, and using that vacation time, I think will hopefully be beneficial to you and buildings and grounds and the teachers as well to prepare.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's 2. We need to move on to the grades 9 to 12, and I'm hoping Mr. Bishop is still here because I think this is going to look a little bit different from the reopening advisory plan, or if not, Dr. Kavanaugh, if you can speak to the changes. I'll just kind of run down a little thing first, then you can maybe talk to it. So grades 9 to 12, Timing, we don't have a date. We also do not have a directive from the commissioner yet for the high school. Scheduling, when we do open, this is the change. I'll kind of gloss over it and then hand it over to Dr. Kavanaugh. But basically, we're talking now about a full return to in-person, not a dismissal at 11:45. It will be a full return to pre-pandemic scheduling with the 7:25 start, and is it 1:50? I think is the final bell, which would eliminate, I might add, the extra bus run, which would have been about $76,000, I think. Social distancing is the same with 3 to 4 feet, center of desk to center of desk. Lunch would be served with 6 feet of social distancing. I'll let Dr. Kavanaugh talk about that. Risk mitigation, similar to what we're doing now. We will continue with mask wearing, hand hygiene, ventilation, surface cleaning, etc. In addition, there may be some traffic management measures put in place that would allow for one-way stairwells, if it's appropriate, and or staggered dismissal times from the classes so that there aren't as many kids leaving classes together. Mass breaks would be provided. Again, you can remain fully remote. Over on the cost side, we had talked earlier in the meeting about testing. I put that here, it could go anywhere, but I put it here because of the number of cases that we've seen at the high school. So I don't know if that's a consideration of a cost. It is not required to open the doors, that is for sure. To open the doors, there is no additional cost that has been identified to us now that we don't need the bus run. Primary concerns that have been raised, again, student transitions, will you keep your teachers or not, class sizes, class relocation. In some cases, there may be classes that have to be moved. Again, risk mitigation has come up a lot in the high school. It'll be about 1,000 students, I think. And, you know, we have a densely populated high school all the time. We've had a lot of enrollment growth, but that has come up as a concern. AP testing has come up as a concern. We do have about 1,100 tests that we issue. So there are a lot of students that this impacts. And there should be no changes in the AP student teacher assignments just this couple of weeks before testing. And timing has come up with a lot of the people who've emailed us. In some cases, please do it right away. My child is a senior and they need any time they can get with their classmates. We've also had people requesting that we delay because the hybrid model is working really well for their students. So it kind of goes both ways. Just things to throw out that have come up, that April 26th is a date that senior projects and or internships may begin. I don't know how many seniors will take advantage of that this year. It can be up to like around a third. And I think I said the last day of school for seniors is May 26th, and AP testing is in May. So Dr. Kavanaugh, could you talk a little bit about how and why we've changed this from the recommendation that came out of the reopening advisory group?
Sure. So we felt like the reopening advisory group had said that they wanted their kids in school, or to try to figure out a way to get kids back in school every day, full time. And that was our charge. And so, you know, and then the question became, you know, if and when that would be feasible. Well, we really looked very hard at lunch at the high school. And because there are, I think, 1,034 kids who are coming to school in the hybrid model, and maybe 164 kids who are remote, you know, you still have an awful lot of kids who are coming to school. You know, at some of our elementary schools, we had 40% of our kids that were remote, and that was not the case at the high school. So what we came up with was something that got all of our kids to school every single day until 11:45. And then we were going to use a model where we dismissed kids. They'd have an hour for travel, an hour for lunch, and then they'd log back into their very last period of the day, and they would have whatever that period was taught to them remotely. But the nice part of the high school schedule, because it rotates, is that it would be a different class every single day. So you'd have your in-person teacher the majority of the time. Well, recently when the commissioner came out with this new guidance, which was this week, he said, no more hybrid models. So you were not allowed to have any kind of a hybrid model, which made this particular model unavailable to Hopkinton. He has also said that if you have an issue with lunch, he's happy to send a team out to do an analysis of your setting, but he's going to tell you that you can eat lunch at a social distance of 3 feet. That's one of the things he's going to tell you, which, you know, many medical professionals, I think, even if you watch the Bessie Board of Elementary and Secondary Education hearing, the medical professional on the far right kind of skirts that question, because I'm not sure that everyone would agree that 6 feet with masks off, or anything less than 6 feet with masks off, is advisable. So the other thing that the commissioner has said is that on a date in April, he's going to give us a date when we need to come back, but there will be a 2-week window. So if he tells you on, you know, April 5th that you've got to come back in 2 weeks, or April 8th that you've got to come back in 2 weeks, you know, the supposition might be that you're coming back before the end of April. And I don't want to make that prediction, but it does feel like that's the direction he's going in. Anyway, so we put our heads together today to think about ways that we could take advantage of the athletic center at the high school, and get folding chairs in there, pull down the bleachers, space kids out, reopen the cafeteria with tables, try to get as many kids in there socially distanced as we can. The beauty is that juniors and seniors will have privileges then. We'll add a tent to the outside, and we're even looking at maybe some other spaces to move some of those larger classes that will end up freeing up the athletic center. So, you know, right now that's the plan. And we know that, you know, when juniors and seniors have privileges, that will clear out a lot of the kids. And right now, Mr. Bishop is running 3 lunches. He's going to need to go to 4 lunches. And Mr. Bishop, I would invite you to add anything to that you possibly can, because we had a good meeting about it today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. And you recapped quite a bit of the conversation that we had. Certainly, it was not what we were expecting. Talking a little bit about the reopening committee, we talked for quite a while about this idea of letting students leave at lunch, and we were preparing for that. But now to have to kind of, you know, change course just this week, it's taking some time to kind of think about how this is going to work. Obviously, we're being asked to do this, so we will do our best to make it work. Like Mr. Keller said, we do want students back in the building, but obviously we want that in a safe manner. So I do think we've been starting to kind of look at the athletic center, like Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned. I think the last time I came and spoke to all of you, that was going to be a location where we were going to have some classes that were over 25. So we have been able to find some other spaces, and I do want to thank the folks over at the HCA. I had a conversation with them today, and they are willing to allow some of our bigger classes to go over there and have some class during the school day, which is we are so appreciative of. So that will free up some of those larger classes that we initially had thought would be in the athletic center to now be in a different location. So we might be able to have more students in that athletic center for lunch. All the desks that are currently in there will have to be removed to get put into classrooms. I think we all know that. But we do have quite a few folding chairs for graduation. Anybody who's been to graduation, you see how many chairs we have. So our plan is to kind of sprinkle those around the athletic center, very similar to the way we have our desks set up. And students will have to be eating on folding chairs. They'll have to be eating in the bleachers. The cafeteria will have tables back in there with limited seats. So we're still probably looking at an 80-person capacity in the caf. And then there's going to be outside. When it's a nice day, we're going to encourage students to eat outside, kind of like an open campus feel. And I think the juniors and seniors, we're going to really strongly encourage that they use their privileges during lunch and eat outside of the building as well. Like Dr. Kavanaugh mentioned, we do have a tent. We're hoping maybe getting another one to have some shade, and maybe if there's bad weather. I think the bad weather days are the ones that we're really going to have to get our heads around and figure out a plan. Obviously, you mentioned we do have AP exams. We have 1,100 different tests. 9 of the AP tests right now, from my understanding, are still in person with paper. Those are usually done in the athletic center. So those days will also add another layer to what we're going to do around lunch. So still a lot of things that we need to kind of figure out, but with the space being over at the HCA, maybe we can use the auditorium a little bit more for either overflow classrooms, study halls that are big, maybe lunch if we need to. We're going to have to think outside the box. We're going to have to do different things. But I think if we're talking about April or May, the weather hopefully will be nice as well. So we will be able to get students outside to eat during their lunch. So that is what we're thinking right now. We currently have a 3 lunch schedule. If we were going to keep everybody in the building and not let them eat outside or use their privileges, like I think I mentioned last time, we need more like 7 or 8 with the amount of space. But I think if we're encouraging upperclassmen to leave and really focusing on 9th and 10th grade at the high school eating in those locations, I think we can probably get away with 4 lunches. But that, again, is still something that I'm not comfortable and confident that it's going to be 4 lunches, but that's what we think we can probably make do with given the circumstances.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Obviously, this is hot off the press, always whiteboarding and coming up with new solutions to new challenges. So with our inability to have that remote period count as time on learning, obviously we have to address that. So committee members, I'm sure there are questions. Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Amanda, I want to compliment Principal Bishop on the creativity on the lunch and the outdoor spaces, even working with the HCA for space. You're demonstrating the kind of creativity we've been looking for. So thank you for that. My question is, I guess, as we're also excited about reopening, we do want to acknowledge there is a virus still, right? And you've seen some additional cases at the high school recently. Can you comment, and I've been advocating for re-rolling out the health track also, but can you comment on a big piece of our success so far has been the contact tracing, because it allows us to quickly remove the positive case and any close contacts. But in some cases, we've seen that due to the limitation, I think, on the number of people doing contact tracing, it hasn't always been able to be done in the same day. How comfortable do you feel with the amount of contact tracing resources you have that you'll be able to handle this?
I'd love
tracing in the same day.
I'd love to say something about that, and then I'll certainly let Mr. Bishop talk about what that looks like on the ground level. Today at 4:30, I met with our 6 school nurses. And I mean, just today, we had a case at the high school, and you know that we've had a preponderance of them lately, but that case produced 33 close contacts. And so that meant that we were sending a robocall to all 33 of those students' families, and it meant that the school nurses were getting out emails to all of them. The meeting I had with them today, the $76,000 that we're saving from that bus, I've got to hire another contact tracer for middle school and high school. We can't continue on this way. And I just want to be very clear that the nurses will work until 9 and 10 o'clock at night to make sure that people get the information they need. I think the problem we've had in the past was just confusion about who was taking on that responsibility. Was it on the town public health side or in the schools? But now that we are owning all that contact tracing, we've got to put another person in there.
Yeah, and please, to the school nurses, thank you. It's that I'm asking what additional resources are needed. So I'm glad to hear you're asking for additional contact tracing.
Yes, they are working around the clock. I am not kidding. I don't think anyone in the district is working more hours maybe than our school nurses.
Right.
Yeah, and if you'd like me to comment on it as well, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a challenge to contact trace right now with the staffing that we have. We're doing the best. Our nurses are fantastic. They work tremendously hard. In a typical case, usually they'll handle communicating with families. Our assistant principals handle communicating with the students, and then I usually work with the teachers. And as we know, there's been quite a few cases at the high school. I think I've emailed families. I'm sure they're getting sick of seeing my name come up on the email, but 5 of the last 9 days, I've communicated to families that we've had a positive case at the high school. So what that entails is a lot of the people that are trying to plan for, and again, not trying to make anybody feel bad for us. This is what we signed up for. We're doing the best that we can. But a lot of the time that we're trying to put into how we're going to handle lunch is now being directed towards calling the 34 different families. And so those are challenging times to get it all done when there's a lot of different demand. So adding another person to that mix would be really helpful for us. And I'm sure the school nurses would really appreciate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask just a question about that? Because again, I do echo Joe's sentiment of wanting to provide resources if we're going to go forward. Would that be a position that might be required in next year's budget as well? Because I would foresee that a lot of the circumstances will remain in at least the beginning of next school year.
It certainly could, and that's something that we're thinking about. that was part of our conversation, I think, with the nurses today as well.
Dr. Kavanaugh, do you anticipate bringing forward at our next meeting a request for a position then? Would it have to, is it something that would be for this year, for right now, from now?
100%. In fact, when I left the nurses today, we have some ideas about people who might, even be thinking about those kinds of positions. And, so just who do they know that might be interested in that? Because, I mean, as we've talked about with lunch monitors, it's really hard to find people who know how to do, like, who want these jobs in these part-time positions in a pandemic, but also who would be good at doing those jobs. So they're kind of looking under rocks right now to see if they know people who would be exceptional at these positions. And then we can post for it.
Other questions? Leah, off my screen. Leah.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first of all, is there a possibility, so I sort of understand the whole COVID testing concern that it's just about reassurance, etc. However, I think finding asymptomatic kids may be a boon, not just for the schools, but for their families. There's a lot of very real people out there that have, immunocompromised issues, etc. And so knowing that your child has COVID may help the family as a whole. That said, I also understand that these costs are pretty prohibitive right now. Is there a way to get an understanding of what the cost would be if we did it, let's say, just for the high school versus if we did it for the entire district? So that's my first question. And my second question is, this is hot off the presses, and it sounds like, some of it is probably pretty set, and some of it, there's still a little bit of, are we sure this is going to be able to be settled the way we want it to be settled? So I just wanted to get a feel from Mr. Bishop as to sort of how comfortable is he with what is in front of us right now? Would he want like another week to feel settled about what he's offering us? Like what is his feeling about this particular thought model in front of us right now?
Mr.
Because
Bishop.
that would really help with my decision making.
Sure. So Lee, are you wanting me to comment more on the lunch or just the timing of our return?
So, it sounds like the HCA thing is fairly new. It sounded like the lunch thing was still a concern. Yeah, so just a feel for, how comfortable are you with what's in front of us? And are there things that you feel you still want to kind of hash out a little more closely?
Yeah, I think with only a few days to kind of get our heads around now having to serve lunch, not wanting necessarily to serve lunch. I think I would need some more time working with my team here and with our scheduling committee. We had 4 of our scheduling committee members come down during free periods today being like, how can I help look at the schedule and create opportunities for us? It just kind of speaks to the type of staff that we have here trying to kind of find solutions. So I think we're still getting our heads around having, I think it's 1060 is the number of students that'll be in the building. We have 135 remote, having them eat in the cafeteria. That really is something that we haven't fully flushed out yet because we just haven't had the time. We were planning for something. We thought we had a good plan, and now we're going to have to change. Doesn't mean we can't do it, and it doesn't mean we won't be able to do it quickly. But right now, I still feel there's some things that we logistically need to work out. Before we're able to return. And I think that there's just other bigger picture things that we've talked about. I know Mr. Keller mentioned some of them as well. I think there's probably a reason why the commissioner hasn't put a timetable on high school returns. It's just a little bit of a different animal, I think, than the other buildings, especially with the number of kids going from class to class and the amount of kids teachers see in a day, upwards of 120 to 125. So it's just a different setup. We all know that. I think the after April break has been talked about a lot. I think that gives time for teachers to get vaccinated, which I think is so important. We also have the construction issue at the high school, which I know I've mentioned, which complicates things a little bit. We're hoping for that to be done closer to the vacation, which would allow us to have more room to have kids go about the building. Right now, we have one whole staircase kind of blocked off for traffic, which is a little bit unique. I know I've mentioned that before. Our senior project starts after April break. So there will be some students that will elect to do that and not be coming into the building. So our numbers maybe won't be as high as 1060 when we talk about lunch and crowded hallways. I don't know the number of students who are going to do that, but usually, like Ms. Fargiano mentioned, it's about a third of the class. So just something to consider. Obviously, combining cohorts right now with the green and orange, our teachers are going from teaching 5 classes to almost teaching 10, if that makes sense. They have such different, with the way our schedule works, they're doing different things, even with the same period class, different cohorts. So bringing them back together is going to take time and plan for it. So if we're really looking for what's best instructionally, we need a little time to get our heads around getting both of those groups to kind of come back and be together. They're not right in lockstep all the time, especially with AP tests coming, especially with MCAS coming. We want to make sure we give the teachers the proper time to work with their students, what's best instructionally, prepare them for these upcoming exams. Not that it's all about exams, but those are things to think about as they're coming. And those are some things that I think about when we talk about return. And I'll say, no one wants students back in the building more than me. I just want it in a safe way, and I want our teachers to feel comfortable and safe as well. I think that's so important. So there's a lot of things that still at play. I think we've demonstrated we're trying to think outside the box. But I do feel that we'll need a little bit more time in the short term to figure out lunch before any timetable, at least for me, would be able to be decided.
Mr. Bishop, can I just ask you to rewind a little bit? Did you say that the construction might be done around April vacation? Or maybe that's a Ms. Rothermick question. I don't.
That might be wishful thinking, but it's
okay. Winding down.
Winding down, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up? If the construction is not complete, is there a possibility that staircase would be able to be utilized in advance of when the total construction is done? Or does that contingent upon the whole project being done?
From my understanding, and this is certainly not my expertise, that's part of that's contingent on it being complete. So I don't think we can use it until the project's complete.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, and in order to keep the students and the workers separated, opening up the stairway, then you do create that loss of barrier, from the construction workers and our students. So it's not ideal, but we can certainly, continue to play that out as we get closer and closer and come up with, protocols if we need to.
Okay, thank you. I will say that I think I mentioned it in my chair report, or maybe it was in public comment, but we have heard from a lot of secondary school families. We've heard, both sides of reopening, people who, you've obviously done a really good job with the hybrid model. The teachers have done an excellent job of connecting with students in the hybrid model, and really delivering the curriculum, and families are grateful. And we've heard that students have really benefited from the hybrid model, the smaller class sizes, in some cases with the sleeping late, day to process things. We often talk about the pace of a high schooler's life in a typical year is kind of crazy. So we have heard positive things. We have also heard a lot of people who are just dying to get back to school, which is such a great thing. Your kids want to get back to school. I mean, obviously, they're Hillers. They love the high school and they want to be back. And they want to be back as soon as possible. And their voices are loud and clear. We've heard from a couple of students. We actually had 2 very well-written letters, emails. One student who very clearly articulated all the reasons why this has been so damaging and they need to get back in. And it's just been a real loss, a lot of loss this year in terms of the social and emotional side in particular. And another student who very clearly said that they applaud the way that the pandemic has been managed, and they feel safe with what we've got. And, so you have a lot of thoughtful students under your roof, and we're grateful that they've written to us, and a lot of families who have shared lots of opinions on this. So we know everybody loves to be in the building. We have to get the timing right, and we have to get the solution, tidied up a little, since we're sketching it out still today. So, but there's just a lot of sentiment out there.
Yeah, and I hear it too, from both sides, and I get both sides of it, and it's a tough. We're all in a tough position here, and obviously I'm not the one that's going to be setting the date. I just, thinking about this whole process, with the things that are happening, I think any date before April vacation would be really challenging, I think, at the high school. But after April vacation, I think, like with the middle school, it's an opportunity for us to have a little bit more time and plan and try to get it right. It does give us time to bring the seniors back in the building. So I think there's a possibility, if we're expected to come back at some point this school year, that after the April break would be more reasonable than before. I know that's probably obvious because the middle school is now after break as well, but I just wanted to mention that. I think anything before that would be really challenging for us.
Yeah, and I don't know, Dr. Kavanaugh, if you can comment. Is there any, is there any benefit to have the synergy of having secondary come back together? 6 to 12.
Well, I actually do like the idea of bringing, we've got our K-5s coming on a date. I do like the idea of bringing 6 to 12 back on a date. And, not that Hopkinton needs to care about what other districts are doing, but that is the model I've seen in many other districts. I know, like Medway, Ashland, Milford, a lot of them are just doing the split like that. But yeah, I think that it also allows, so Linda Henderson's got things to do. She can concentrate on K-5 and then move to 6 to 12. Tim Person's guys have things to do. They can isolate just the K-5 work, and then after that think about the 6 to 12 work. And the beauty really of after April vacation, as Mr. Bishop and Mr. Keller have so articulately said, is that it really gives you that time to think hard about what that schedule needs to look like, what the teachers are going to be seeing when kids walk through the door for the first time, what we need to do just in terms of creating that physical space. And while we have a very good sense of what that's going to look like in the middle school, at the high school, I think we're going to be moving furniture quite a bit and thinking about how many kids can you really put in that cafeteria with tables restored and 6 feet of social distance. So and what is a rainy day going to look like as opposed to a sunny day? I know weather sounds silly, but it can mean the difference of 100 kids, and that's important. 100 kids 6 feet apart is an enormous amount of space that you would need.
So I guess I turn to the committee now. We have, a day ago, this slide looked different. So we have a different looking slide. Regardless of, I guess, what the slide looks like in terms of model, I think personally, I feel obviously very confident that Mr. Bishop and Dr. Kavanaugh, Mr. Bishop's team, and Ms. Rothermick and Mr. Person, I know they can get it done. I know they will get it done. So, I guess to some degree it doesn't exactly matter. But we did just see this. So, we have a few options. We could start to discuss a date. We could vote a date. We could vote the model and a date. We could discuss a date and bring it back next week and vote it after we've had some time and Mr. Bishop's had some time to sort of tease out the solutions that are at play. Where are we? Where are we as a committee?
I really appreciate Mr. Bishop being so direct, because I wanted to ask about how much time he's talking about, and he's offering that the 26th sounds doable. And I think I heard the superintendent say earlier that the commissioner will announce a date. He will announce in April a date that will be 2 weeks out. It could be he announces it towards the end of April and the date's in May. Is that, or he could announce? Is that, did I hear you properly?
Yes, the only thing that we know is that he will announce a date in April, and there will be a minimum of 2 weeks sort of lag time to get ready. Right. I don't know who he thinks is getting ready in 2 weeks, but
yeah. Well, we've got start, which is great.
Yes.
And I'm just digesting what Mr. Bishop said, and it is all real time, but if the 26th is doable and it does align with the middle school, I like it.
It would give the seniors a month.
Yeah,
Um,
The seniors have less than a month. Yeah.
Well, I think, well, 26 is the last, did I make that up? Is that the last day of, I mean, obviously there's tests and stuff, so.
Yeah, it would be April 26th to May 26th. Yep, the last day is May 26th.
Go ahead, Beck.
I would just add too that I don't think it would be fair to leave all the high schoolers and their parents dangling for another week.
Yeah, I know.
You know, this has been a particular form of excruciating pain for some time. So I actually like this plan better than the previous one because I felt so uncomfortable with the in-school parsing and then shifting to remote. There's a seamlessness to this one. So can I go ahead and say it? I
think
would
you
like a
should.
motion to approve the high school reopening plan with an opening date of April 26th.
And when you're saying the plan, I just want to recognize that it's not the plan that was documented originally. It is the plan that is on this screen, more or less.
Yes, the one right in front of us.
Yeah.
Second.
So-
Discussion. Nancy.
I would like just a little bit of discussion. I think the date itself probably makes sense to me because it seems silly to bring them back at some point in May for the amount of work that goes into it versus the benefit. I would want to come back to the testing next week because I feel like for me that would be a level of comfort for both the community and the staff and the ability to pick up the asymptomatic people who would test positive, but also to be able to look at the numbers that would be specific to the high school, just because we know that the high school students are at a greater risk of carrying it than our younger students. I also like the later date to go back to that because of the ability to get teachers vaccinated. The only one thing I have hesitation in terms of voting this tonight is the brand newness of this plan, even though I personally think this is probably a better plan as well. I like the idea of being able to save the $76,000 we would have had to spend on transportation and be able to put it into some of the mitigation. I'm just wondering if there would be any benefit of waiting a week and if that would cause a problem in delaying the implementation operationally. Because I also wouldn't want to do that.
Mr. Bishop, do you have a comment on the operational side?
I think from the operations side, we're going to try to start to plan for a return sometime after April vacation. So if there's a delay in the voting process of what day we're coming back, we're still going to try to plan to bring the students back sometime right after April vacation. So if you're comfortable with that, I don't think it'll change our planning process. I think we need to plan for a date, and then if that changes, then we can adapt to that. But I think looking ahead past April vacation is something we can start to do, and we already have. Today was a day we really kind of locked ourselves in a room, socially distanced with masks on, of course, and started to really plan this. So.
And wholly, my suggestion is, I didn't mean to disregard that. I am very appreciative of the amount of time and effort that has gone into this and to being able to pivot this on literally such short notice compared to how long we've had planning the prior model that we were looking at. I also wouldn't want to hold this up in vote. I'm more asking it of the rest of the committee to see if anybody else shares that concern.
So I feel similar to Nancy. I'm actually really comfortable with the date. And I'm getting more and more comfortable with the plan. It sounds really good. And in fact, the lunch plan and the HCA thing is a great creative solution to a lot of things. But I'm sort of stuck on the COVID testing as well. But that's also not part of the model. So like, if there's a way to like vote the model contingent upon, some kind of COVID testing being implemented in the high school, then I think I would be comfortable going ahead, right? But if that part needs more discussion and we need to come back to it and it can't be some kind of contingency thing that we throw in there, then I'd have a harder time voting tonight.
Leah, can I just ask Ms. Rothermick, because I think to a large degree it comes down to finances, right? I mean, I think if I were to speak, which I will in a second, I would say what Nancy and Leah both have said. I mean, I feel for me personally, surveillance testing at the high school is important. I know it is a pain to do, but I do think that between the families at home and the staff and the students in all the comings and goings of a high school as vibrant as ours, I think it would just be that layer of confidence, provide that layer of confidence if we can afford it. So what I heard Dr. Kavanaugh say was it could be up to $200,000 about, but that would include the entire district and the staff. And I know the CDC has said the staff does not need to be tested if they've been vaccinated. And I know, I think it was today or yesterday, Governor Baker and Nat opened up 4 dedicated dates for teachers. It's phenomenal. It's like on weekends even. I'm like, all the goodness is happening. It's great. I mean, so the teachers have time to get vaccinated. The date of the 26th, I think even after that last state date, gives enough time for those shots to start taking effect. So I'm thinking fewer and fewer teachers would need to be tested. If we took the middle and elementary grades out student-wise, I feel like we'd be at a manageable cost, but I guess I'm asking Ms. Rothermick, a high, medium, low, what is your level of concern of our ability to afford both furniture and testing?
Yeah, so I don't think that the committee should look at the costs to reentry as being a barrier. So as we stated, we just got new money that was received, which really is aimed at reopening schools. That really is the focus. And the Biden just signed another bill which will be coming to the community. We don't know the amount and we don't know what the restrictions on the spending will be, but knowing that this is such a direct relation to opening schools, it certainly shouldn't be a barrier. The other piece to keep in mind is the costs are directly tied to the number of families that will actually sign on and do this. As Dr. Kavanaugh stated, participation makes a big difference in the cost. And at the same time, the cost of participation, but also the effectiveness of participation. So if you have a very low participation rate, the costs go down, but is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? So just a couple things to keep in mind.
Thank you.
That actually is very helpful.
We're still on discussion. There's a motion seconded, but so my question, I guess I'm surprised that why is not like attestation, contact tracing, and this surveillance testing already in the plan? Why are we waiting? I don't get why it's not already in here. I would have assumed we're doing it. It's reimbursable. I think we're all for it. Do we need to wait a week to discuss it? Or do we?
I don't see a reason why we can't.
I don't think we need to wait.
Or can we end the motion? Or
I think we're getting violently in agreement, which doesn't happen all the time on our committee. So, I mean, I think when we have a good agreement, we should take that at least on the testing. I don't, Nancy had a concern about, I think probably, if I'm putting words in your mouth, the community having a chance to digest the model that has shifted. I guess from my perspective, we can say with a fair degree of certainty that we're going to hear that we need to get in-person full days. We pretty much know that that's going to be coming. So we know that the biggest barrier is lunch. We don't maybe know exactly how Mr. Bishop is going to solve the Rubik's Cube of lunch. But But we do know that the model that we had before us before will not be an option.
But
So
this-
for me, I guess it makes me comfortable if the community and the school district and Mr. Bishop and everyone else can know what our vote is and can just focus on making it happen and not have that uncertainty lingering, as Meg was pointing out, I think that might actually help. I mean, it's not going to make a difference one way or the other whether Mr. Bishop is able to use the HCA or it's another solution. We're going to have to figure out a solution. It could be a third tent. Who knows what we're doing? But for me, I think while the community is digesting this new information, it doesn't preclude us, I don't think, from voting something that is for 4.5 weeks, or whatever I counted before, out, and will allow some focus and some clarity for people. Because we've also in our emails heard a lot about just how difficult this uncertainty is. The uncertainty makes people very anxious, not knowing what to prepare for. I love the idea of being able to transition after a week off when the schools are empty, when, while Mr. Bishop, maybe you're thinking the 26th is a little aggressive, but at least you have that week off beforehand, and I think a lot can get done in a week where you're not also having to be, a principal.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me commenting, I think it gives the staff, not that I would want them to come in on their vacation because they've earned the break and the relaxation, but it gives them a chance to kind of come in and see what that room might look like now that there's going to be 24, 25, 26 desks in the room, and help them set it up and get it ready for whenever we were to return after vacation. That I think is an important step for them, as opposed to trying to just do it on a weekend. And it's going to be challenging to take the 500 desks that we have stacked up on top of each other in the athletic center and do that. So I think that gives us that week is important for, I think, for the planning for Tim Person and his crew, but also for our staff to kind of get their room in order for having now double the amount of students in their classroom.
I think I know there's a motion and there's a second. So going back to my parliamentary rules or whatever they are. So I think we need to take a vote on that. I think I also heard agreement across the committee that we would like to vote with surveillance testing at the high school, and Joe has suggested relaunching the attestation district-wide. So I don't know if we need to vote down this existing motion and restate the motion with an amendment.
I think we can add an amendment on it and have it voted, the amendment to add, and then do the whole vote for the just based on what we do at town meeting.
Excellent. I would love if someone could articulate an amendment to the current motion.
So I would like a motion to make an amendment to the existing motion to add into this plan both the testing to be pursued, and also a push out or rollout again of the health track app information to families who might be interested in pursuing that again with us.
Can we say JCM testing?
I like the JCM too, and
Thank you.
yes, I'm comfortable with that.
I have to respect our nurses if they're going to say that that's the least difficult one to manage and most effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an amendment to.
Leah, you're off my screen again. Sorry.
Yep. I was just going to either say so moved or second, whatever people say, but yes.
Perfect. I hope that Georgette's watching and can make some sense out of that amendment and the motion. But I think we have a motion to accept the plan as on the screen with contingent on JCM testing at the high school and a re-rollout of the attestation app as well. With the date of April.
Vote the amendment.
We're voting the amendment first, and on discussion on the vote on the amendment that's been seconded.
Thank you.
I totally would have expected that was in the plan already. I'm surprised if it weren't, but to make it fully explicit, let's do it. Let's vote the amendment. Thank you.
Are we on the vote now? I've lost my
We're having a vote on the amendment.
All right, Leah, how do you vote on the amendment?
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nancy,
Yes.
and I'm an aye as well. So the amendment passes. Okay, now we can vote. Now we can vote the motion.
The one-
I'll never be town moderator. It'll never happen. Okay.
So I vote to approve the high school reopening plan as it is displayed on my screen in this very moment, with an opening date of April 26th.
And with the amendments.
And with the amendments that we
Amen.
spent a long time discussing.
Okay. Motion by Meg,
Second.
second by Joe. Roll call vote. Leah,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nancy,
Yes.
and I'm an aye as well. And so it passes. I hope the date works for you, Mr. Bishop. I think it's we're a lot more comfortable with that date than March 29th. And hopefully it will give ample time to sort through all this. And just we cannot thank you and your staff and the teachers enough for all of the time to go through and come up with these creative solutions for our students.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thanks for all your work. I know you're putting in tremendous amount of hours as well. So we appreciate all that you're doing and supporting the schools. And, we'll get to it and start coming up with plans at the high school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
All right.
Good rest of the night.
I think we can stop screen sharing. It's 9:30. We do need to cover some more business. If you need a 2-minute break, we can take one, but we do need to cover a couple of important items. I'm sorry that went so over, but I think the community needed us to take that time and have that discussion. So thank you. And we can quickly do Hopkins gift account. Go ahead, Dr. Kavanaugh. We'll get to that one.
Gosh, I have to get back to my education. I'm totally disoriented.
I think you're requesting that the school committee accept the $103.40 from Box Tops and $570.96 from the Artsonia fundraiser for the Hopkins School gift account.
In a total of $674.36. Yes, I am.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Nancy,
Second.
second by Meg. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
Leah,
Aye.
Joe, and I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much. Bach trumpet donation.
Okay, so I am requesting and recommending that the school committee accept a donation from the Keating family of a Bach trumpet for the 5 to 12 band program. And that will be used with students across 2 schools.
Thank you.
So moved.
Motion by Nancy, second by Meg. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Meg,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. And thank you for the trumpet donation. It's always great when people pay it forward with their instruments to other students. This is a quick housekeeping matter. I have the fiscal year 22 budget vote. When we voted the budget, as you recall, we voted the budget with an amount of money around $187,000 for PPE in our budget. We now know that more than enough money is coming to the town to cover that portion of our budget. And I'm asking us to revote our budget with our number minus the $187,000, which is going to be covered by grant money to the town. It's a bit of a housekeeping matter.
Shall I move to approve the revised budget?
That would be great.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Meg, second by Leah. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Meg,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. And so that passes. Superintendent's formative evaluation feedback. Dr. Kavanaugh, could you pop up the slides? We're going to go through this fairly quickly, but we have, as you know, while I was getting up, every year in the middle of the year, we're a little bit toward the middle-ish, a little beyond the middle, but we're still getting there. Dr. Kavanaugh, every superintendent receives informal feedback to ensure that everything's sort of on track. And so we had 2 different meetings where we heard from Dr. Kavanaugh on her goals and her indicators, evaluation indicators. Can we go to the first slide? Sorry. Or a second slide, actually.
Oh, my goodness. Sorry.
Okay, right, just a reminder. So this is not a written feedback. It's nothing formal, but it is an opportunity for us to identify anything that might need a revision or adjustment, and for Dr. Kavanaugh to ask for supports from us, and to eliminate any surprises at the year-end summative. The summative evaluation is a formal written evaluation. This is informal. So next slide, please. So as a reminder, and to the committee members, that you can, I think, link through these, the goals and the focus indicators for the details. But Dr. Kavanaugh has 5 goals that she updated us on, and 9 focus indicators. Of course, we asked for 6, but we got extra, which is great. So we have had updates. One of the key things that came out of the updates was the identification of goal number 5, which seemed, because of COVID conditions, to be less achievable, not due to any fault of Dr. Kavanaugh's, but just circumstances have changed. So I'd like to go to the next slide, please, and talk about goal 5. At goal 5, the key process benchmarks we're working, this was around planning for enrollment growth, and had a lot to do with the statement of interest for Elmwood and the campus planning study, and getting a long-range plan in place. So there were some process benchmarks that Dr. Kavanaugh commented on, and you can see the first one was postponed because we froze the capital budget last year because of COVID. That was hiring a consultant. So we have this capital project in this year's budget. So it's sort of carried forward. We have reviewing the DRA information that we got last year, and coming up with sort of an analysis for budgetary, facilities, enrollment, et cetera, for how we're going to accommodate our enrollment growth. And Dr. Kavanaugh gamely said it was still feasible, but I think there is obviously a lot going on right now. Holding public forums to talk about how we're going to plan the campuses. This, obviously, a lot of this work, it has been put off a little bit. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I'm making a recommendation based on, I think it was Leah who brought up the fact that this goal was going to be difficult to achieve. I'm making a recommendation that we either move this goal to next year, or what I actually would like to recommend is that we maybe make it a 2-year goal. This is not unusual. If you look at MASC readily acknowledges that multi-year goals are perfectly appropriate, particularly for non-brand new superintendents. If you have an established superintendent, there's a lot more you can achieve over 2 years or multiple years in many cases. And the second rationale would be that the COVID-19 pandemic just did not allow enough time or resources to get into the planning that we wanted to do. So if committee members are okay with the idea, and Dr. Kavanaugh is okay with the idea, I would like to make this a 2-year goal, with a note that this year we are hopefully securing funding for the campus planning study, which is in our capital plan. And Dr. Kavanaugh next week at our meeting will share what was presented at the municipal leaders meeting about sort of our 5-year ask at a 50,000-foot level, which is sort of a place along the road to getting this goal accomplished as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that, because I didn't see a bullet on that, and I do feel like that is a bullet towards achieving this goal, is presenting that 5-year ask, and so I feel like that should be in here. And I think the 2-year idea is perfectly good. I think it makes a total sense for her to have 2 years to complete this, considering everything that's happened.
Yeah, I'm happy to just, last night we did have a growth study committee meeting, and I think what has been really nice about that is that we've been kind of inviting in Tim O'Leary, Elaine Lazarus. So now that we are that group is almost serving as a facilitator of dialogue interdepartmentally in ways that, will start to have us think about, open space, and not just things like where could you possibly build a house, but kindergarten birth rates across Hopkinton and why Hopkinton is desirable, and in what places would you put a school or put something residential or bring in industry. And so I think we're getting a much better comprehensive look at things, and I think that might be a positive byproduct of the pandemic. I have recently talked to the MSBA. They won't have answers for us until late spring, early summer about the SOI at Elmwood, and they will also not be issuing the opportunity to submit new SOIs either. But I think the nice part of the presentation that was put together for the town meeting, and thank you to Mrs. Rothermick for all the work that she did with that, is that we're starting to socialize the idea of a, really hundreds of millions kind of dollar school project to be able to, create facilities that are large enough for all of our students and all of the programming that we need to offer students in Hopkinton. So the pandemic did slow this goal, but a lot is going on kind of behind the scenes, maybe just not necessarily the benchmarks that were outlined, a year ago.
Dr. Cameron, would you prefer us to move this goal to next year or make it a 2-year goal?
Oh, I would prefer it would be 2 years.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you. I think that it's a really, really important goal, right? As we look to continue delivering the quality of education that we've set to expect in Hopkinton, amidst growing population, these building projects are absolutely critical. The rationale that I have for making it a 2-year goal isn't shown here. And as the liaison to the Growth Study Committee and the former chair of the Marathon School building project, which was done amidst great uncertainty over enrollment growth. The rationale I would see for making this a 2-year goal is the current uncertainty over enrollment growth. Mm-hmm. And that might be due to the COVID pandemic partially, but it would be unwise of us to make decisions this year based on the uncertainty over enrollment next year. And I think by making this a 2-year goal, that would achieve, that would allow us to have better insight into the 2-year trajectory of growth and enrollment that we don't know right now.
Those are good points.
If we could add that to the rationale, I totally agree with making it a 2-year goal.
Yeah. Okay, great. I don't know. I guess we probably should take a vote on that because we did vote your goals. I don't think we put a motion in the agenda, but we should have because we did actually vote the goals. So I think we should vote. And I would appreciate if the motion someone makes would include the additional rationale that Joe has mentioned.
I'll try to make it then.
Okay, go for it.
It's hard for other people to remember what I said, maybe even harder than it is for me. But I'll make a motion to make Goal 5, planning for enrollment growth, a 2-year goal with the added rationale that we're in a period of great uncertainty over enrollment growth, and we will know more as we enter the next school year.
Motion by Joe, well stated.
Second.
Second by Leah. Nancy, how do you vote? I didn't hear you, sorry. I think you need to be recorded. No. Well, you're saying aye. We sort of see it. Okay. Nancy says yes.
You can write it on a piece of paper.
Leah, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Oh, there you are. Thank you for that. And just one more slide, Dr. Kavanaugh, please. And so I just want to encourage Nancy?
I've lost my audio there. Now it's coming back, so I don't know what you just said.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to wrap up this topic.
Oh.
That I'm going to ask. So we did actually vote unanimously to make it a 2-year goal, and I appreciate the extra rationale. I think that's important. And Leah, thank you for catching this earlier on. I didn't want you to think we forgot about that. It was a good catch when we first heard the goal update. I would like to ask committee members to please provide any additional questions or comments on anything that you've heard Dr. Kavanaugh present to her directly, and if you could do that by next Friday so that we can put a bow on any mid-year feedback, that would be appreciated. For the community, when we evaluate Dr. Kavanaugh for real, we all do write individual evaluations, and then we come together in a public meeting on camera and we merge our 5 written evaluations into one committee evaluation. It is only the evaluation of the committee that matters. So we do merge that on camera, and then we deliver it super fun on camera. It's all done on camera. So all that happens very officially in May. This is just the informal check-in. Okay, thank you. Excellent. I think we need to do McKinney-Vento homeless education. Dr. Kavanaugh.
Yes, thank you. So there are 2 policies tonight that I really would like for the committee to take a close look at. These are both connected actually to our review. Dr. Zaleski, as you know, has been working, or maybe you don't know, very hard because the state is coming in to do a review of all of our programming to ensure that things like civil rights and all of that are in place. So the first policy that you have is JFABD. It's the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Policy. And I believe that the last time this was updated in Hopkinton was in 2010. So in 2015, there was a change to this policy because of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which we fondly call ESSA. And so what we did in looking at this particular policy is we really just made the updates to it that Desi had advised Dr. Zaleski to make. We took a look at the MASC document, and we also ran this past our legal counsel because we want to make sure that what's going to happen when the tiered focus monitoring reviewers come in is that our policy will reflect the latest legislation and will be appropriate so that we are not cited.
And Dr. Kavanaugh, Dr. Zaleski has obviously seen this.
Oh, yes.
And she's recommending that we can approve this.
She is comfortable with this, yes.
Committee members, questions or feedback? I didn't get any emails on this particular topic. No. Any questions? Nothing? Any motions? Anything?
Motion to approve. Motion to approve policy. Let's look. My thing just closed. So
JFABD.
JFABD, McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Act policy, as written, with no edits.
Okay. Motion by Leah.
Second.
Second by Meg. Is there any additional discussion? Okay. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Joe?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, and that passes. And the other policy, Dr. Kavanaugh?
Okay, very quickly is ACAB, and that is Hopkinton School Committee Policy for Harassment. And you're probably looking at this and thinking, why are we looking at that policy? Because we just approved it on October 29th, 2020. But this is another one that will be reviewed through TFM, and because it is, we sent it off to our legal counsel and they made very, very slight changes to it. The only changes you see are the pink text where, some text is replaced and some is stricken through. And I don't necessarily know that it's a huge change. I think it's just the kind of change that that a lawyer would make, and lay people like ourselves in reading that policy felt sounded great to us. So I don't know how comfortable you are approving this policy, but the changes are very subtle. We just reviewed it extensively in October, and the only changes here are just the ones recommended by legal counsel.
I will say, as a matter of course, if there are sort of more clerical or, not substantive changes, they don't necessarily have to go through 3 readings in a row. This is a little bit more than just clerical, but not truly hugely substantive, I don't think. But it is okay for us to approve a policy that hasn't had 3 readings if there aren't huge changes to the substance. Discussion, questions, anything? Again, I did not receive feedback on this.
As a member of the policy committee, I feel like the big changes we made were reviewed very thoroughly, and we went back a couple times with the wording. So I feel really comfortable with minor legal changes and accepting the policy on a first reading.
Thank you. Meg's nodding, so I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Meg to accept policy as edited, as presented.
Second.
Second by Leah. Roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, and that passes. Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. I think, are we at the
thank you.
consent agenda? Let's see, where are we?
Yeah.
We are. Future agenda items we're going to talk about next week. Items by consensus.
Okay, so as superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nancy, second by Meg. Nancy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Joe?
Aye.
Meg?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And that brings us at 9:51. Not too bad. We did excellent work tonight. Before we adjourn, I have to say to the committee, very, very, very excellent work on getting through all this. And I feel, it's funny to have put so much time and energy and thought into the votes on a return to full in-person, and to know the community that is out there and the teachers and everybody's watching this vote, and to have taken it tonight. It leaves us, it leaves you feeling in a funny place. But I think we did really good work together, and we are, as we've done all year, I believe, taking a very measured and smart course forward. So I really want to thank you for all that you have done to connect with the community and hear the concerns and bring them forward. It's really good work. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes.
Second.
Motion by Meg, second by Leah, and I need a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Meg?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well, and we are adjourned at 9:52. We are meeting again next week, March 18th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh. Thank you, Ms. Rademick. Have a good night.
Thank you.
And thank you to HCAM.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.